Somebody can't use me. No, you dip and tight. No, see if you come last time. Okay, let's go. Title.
Good afternoon, honorable chairs and honorable members. With your permission, this meeting is now called to order. Shall we all observe a minute of individual silence prayers? Amen. Amen. Honorable Chair, before we move to the event, with your permission, let me go through the agenda for today's meeting. First, we have call to order and silent prayers, which we've done. Welcome remarks and setting the stage by the chairman. Self-introduction, honorable members are all present. Committee's mandate by the committee clerk. Administration of oath by the committee clerk. Presentation. Ministry of Political and Public Affairs, the minister and the administrators. Interventions by CSO representatives. Intervention by political party leaders. Deliberations, question and answers, closing remarks by the chairperson. We now move to our next item on the agenda with welcome remarks and setting the scene by the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members, honorable minister, and officials of the Ministry for Political and Public Affairs. Thank you very much for attending this committee meeting. For those who we've invited from the public, our friends from the civil society organizations, thank you very much for responding to the invitation. And it was a very short notice. We were going to have an earlier meeting an hour before this meeting with the ministry, but for logistics reasons, we decided to blend them. So the first 30-45 minutes, we'll listen to the Ministry for Political and Public Affairs. And then that also gives time for some of our other guests to arrive. I see some of them are not here yet. And so that we can kick off a more broader discussion on the proportional representation system of politics and elections. I want to thank all of you for coming. Our committee has a broad mandate to provide oversight specifically for the Ministry for Political and Public Affairs. Also, we have under our mandate oversight for the PPRC, Political Parties Registration Commission. The new name has not been adopted yet, but I'm using it anyway. And several other agencies that report to the Ministry for Political and Public Affairs, which includes disaster management, the National Commission for Democracy, and the APRN system, several of them will hear from the minister. But we also see our role as one where we will create the opportunity for broad dialogue on political issues. The name of our committee is very clear, Political and Public Affairs. So to the extent that we do not overreach and interfere with other departments, but for issues that we believe are of a political nature, we plan to have good dialogue mechanisms, not as free as they can be, to listen to all shades of opinions. We believe as representatives of the people, that's the least we can do to provide an atmosphere and an environment where what I consider hot political issues can be discussed dispassionately, bringing expert opinion as well. And so we'll be doing a series of these over the next 8 months as time progresses. You will know that already as chair of the Committee for Political and Public Affairs, I have moved a motion which was supported by the House, gave a notice of motion to the House, that in fact on the proportional representation system itself, I've asked the House to summon. We use that language summon for the public. It's not a demand, it's not by force, but we're using the word summons because in the parliamentary system it has an important meaning that it is a request and you'll be speaking on the oath to the House. So we put given notice of motion to the House that we want a broader discussion in the way of Parliament on the proportional representation system for all MPs to participate in that discussion. Today, this afternoon, we'll have a prelude to that session. Of course, when we're in the House, civil society will take the floor and talk to us in chamber. Ministers and some senior government appointees have that privilege. So some of us felt that giving the civil society representatives and possibly political parties their views, all shades of opinion on the PR system. It's partly an education for us MPs. Very few of us are three-term MPs. Many of us, about 80% of us are fresh and new faces. This is our first term. We've not been elected before under a PR system. But we would like to listen to what it means. And so we put together a good team of people. And I'm very grateful. At short notice, Friday, Saturday, phone calls. Many said, hey, we'd be willing, we'd be happy to just talk about it. And so for us as MPs who will be participating in that debate or discussion later on, when it is scheduled with the commission, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, at least we're knowledgeable enough to ask the right questions as well. So consider this a free dialogue, and we have many people on that. We have 2 links that we sent up, and many have asked me to know the topic, chairman of political affairs. So they've asked me, but I'm very grateful to Honorable Minister. I had a chat with him last week. He also has an interest in his ministry. That's his mandate to engage in dialogue with different stakeholders in society on any topic. So this is one where we'll be having a good set of dialogue over the next several months. But you'll bear with me that the first 30, 40 minutes, you'll listen to the officials of the ministry about their work program and what they plan to do. We will use that later on for our oversight work, and then we'll spend the rest of the time by then more people that come in also that connected online to discuss the PR system, and I'll explain to you how we intend to manage that process. Allow me to ask my colleagues here to introduce themselves. There are several MPs who are also at the back, others are connecting. Let me also say for the other leaders of the parliament, they are on mission. A number of them are on official mission right now, so they could not join. I'm assuming some of them will be able to link up digitally, like Zoom, to listen to our deliberations. As I say, it's going to be good education for at least 70% of us who have first-term MPs. With that said, I'll ask my colleagues at the table here to introduce themselves, the others who are at the back, that's okay, both of us around the table. Please go ahead, starting from my right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Honorable Kathleen Zainab Tarawali. I am the Deputy Whip for the opposition, and I represent the people of constituency 037, McKinney City.
I'm also chair of the committee.
And I'm also chair of the Committee of Gender and Trades Affairs.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Honorable Paramount Chief Prince Mahmoud Bewa, in charge of Tanroman Chiefdom, Kenema District, member of this committee.
Good afternoon. I'm Honorable by Sama Kamara, Process 016, Kabel District, Mabel District, Deputy Chairman for this committee.
I'm Honorable Abdul Titus Kamara from constituency 061, Cambia District.
Good afternoon. Honorable Combatant Commander, Constituency 024 from Kano. Honorable Dr. Mahmoud Kalabo, President 032 from the opposition.
Good afternoon, Honorable Ibrahim Conte, representing the people of constituency 053 from Kano District.
Honorable Dr. Roland Dalbo, constituency 64, Canada District.
Honorable Moses Bemba Joki, constituency 091 from District.
Honorable
Yes.
Sir Francis Bendu, 027, Kwara District.
Honorable Yakasibama, constituency 026, Kono District.
Honorable
Constituency 077, Kono District.
Honorable Abdul Latif Sise, constituency 075, Kono District.
Honorable Dr. Upas Luigi Kuma, representing the people of constituency 114, Western Northern District.
Honorable Abu Mansari, constituency 074, Kono District.
Honorable Laima from Maraba District.
We will continue. Honorable Clerk, the mandate of our committee. One more, yeah, go ahead, sir.
Honorable Bonkanon, Kono District. Honorable Manubeki, Western Island.
Go ahead.
Honorable Chair and members, with your leave, may I read the provisions from the Constitution that mandated the committee to call or convene such a gathering. Pursuant to Section 93, subsection 3 of the 1991 Constitution, it reads, it shall be the duty of any such committees as referred to in subsection 2 to investigate or inquire into the activities or administration of such ministries or departments as may be assigned to it, and such investigation and inquiry may extend to proposal for legislation. Section 93, subsection 6 reads, for the purpose of effectively performing its functions, each of the committees shall have such powers, rights, and privileges as are vested in the High Court as a trial in respect of A, enforcing the attendance of witnesses and examining them on oath, affirmation or otherwise; B, comparing the production of documents; and C, the issue of a commission or request to examine witnesses abroad. And we have the famous provision which is contempt of parliament, section 95. It reads, any act or omission which obstructs or impedes parliament in the performance of its functions, or which obstructs or impedes any member or officer of the discharge of his duties or upon the duties of parliament, or which then either directly or indirectly to produce such results as be a contempt of parliament. And if you are found wanting of contempt of parliament, section 96 will be invoked, which states, where an act or omission which constitutes a contempt of parliament is an offense under the criminal law. The exercise by Parliament of the power to punish for contempt shall not be a bar to the institution of procedure under the criminal law. And also, may I read for the also further, the Committee on Political Affairs was constituted pursuant to Section 93H of the Constitution of Sierra Leone, Act number 6 of 1991, in tandem with Standing Order 70 to oversee the Ministry of Political and Public Affairs, whose mandate is to liaise between the public and the government, serving as a conduit through which government policies, project implementations are reached to the general public and direct the public concerns to the government relating to policy implementation, and at the same time bringing to the notice of government anything deemed as a threat to the stability and security of the state politically, socio-economically, etc., etc. Honorable Chair, I can give the mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. All of that said only deals with those that we have oversight responsibilities over. So I don't want civil society to assume that there will be any contempt issues here. No, that was just meant for the ministry officials. Now administer the oath.
Please, guys. I think ministers already
Just the PS.
PS and any Muslim? Any Muslim? No. Okay. Please. You stretch your hands towards the Holy Bible. When I say I, you give your full names and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you, Mr. Message. Honorable Chair and members, the witnesses.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, your work program and so on, and then the work program together with your PS, you decide who speaks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. You started by thanking us for attending. I think for us not to be in contempt of Parliament, had to adhere to the summons. And you just tried to explain to the public that someone is actually here, probably is not the engagement, but what is used in Parliament. It's really appropriate. And we as a ministry also have been looking for us to be able to come here and explain to the public and the government what our ministries have been engaged in for the last few years. And your summon is quite explicit here. It says, has made in implementing the programs during the current financial year and to explore ways of creating a dialogue mechanism among political parties and stakeholders with regards to the proportional representation system. If I may request, Mr. Chair, if we can probably split the discussions into two. That is the ministry giving its work program for the last year or so. And then we just create space for the discussions to do with the proportional representation. On that note, actually, this is politics. I think, Mr. Chair, if I may use this forum to send a message out to our people in Sierra Leone, that on the other side, there as chair of this committee is my brother, Dr. Kande Oleyu Kela. He is performing his constitutional duties by summoning me, his brother, to all performing my constitutional duties as well. For him to question me, it's his duty. That's what he is taking the oath of Parliament. Congratulations, Dr. Kela. It means we can be in the same house with different political a different political divide, and we can still perform our constitutional duties. So on that note, if I can ask that we split this discussion, the ministry gives a background of what we've been up to and what's happening, and probably the APR, and luckily for us, Dr. Silva is here, who is the chair of the APRM. So if I can pass the mic on to my director for him to continue the discussion, that when it comes to proportional representation, then I'll come to discuss. Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I can also, I know actually when you have these summons or these committee meetings, this is the normal sitting kind of arrangement. But I'm finding it a bit comfortable to have me sitting with my back to the audience that I'm trying to address as well.
When we get to the proportional representation, the chairs will be turned around so that the dialogue is more healthy. But for now, face us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I know we lot of I stand on the existing principles. My name is James Bongo Sisi. I'm the Director of Ministry of Political and Public Affairs. The Ministry of Political and Public Affairs was established in 1996 to serve as a conduit through which citizens and governments can engage in the spirit of promoting democracy and good governance. The Ministry of Political and Public Affairs is not an armchair ministry, it's an outreach ministry responsible for popularizing government policies and programs. Of course, the ministry has a vision, and policy objectives. The mission of the Ministry of Political and Public Affairs is to develop policies and programs geared towards promoting democracy and governance through stakeholders' participation in governance activities. And the vision is to foster and advance and well-structured socio-political and democratic culture that will serve as the engine for sustainable peace and socio-economic development in Sierra Leone. Of course, the policy objectives of the ministry, as it has also been revealed. One is to serve as a liaison between the executive arms of government and the legislature, and to monitor executive legislative programs in parliament. Secondly, is to popularize government policies and programs through stakeholders' participation in the activities of government. Thirdly, is to maintain contact with the general public, traditional leaders, civil society organizations, political parties, or any pressure group operating in the country. We are also responsible for promoting civic education. We are to channel all complaints, appeals, and representation to the office of the president. Of course, look at 2022 on the budget we presented to the Ministry of Finance. Let's just see what we achieved. Okay, we presented 5 deliverables. One, we still want to develop a comprehensive strategy for engaging citizens on the achievements and challenges on the implementation of the Medium-Term National Development Plan. Then we still want to rationalize the mandates and the operational relationship of the ministry with other institutions. Of course, we say we want to operationalize the government citizens portal. We developed the government citizens portal in 2021, but it's not yet operational. Of course, we said we want to develop a policy and strategy on state CSO engagements. We have been doing this with in collaboration with the Office of the Vice President. Then finally, we want to accelerate civic and voter education to promote social cohesion, peace and social cohesion before, during, and after election. Thank you. So for 2022, what we've been able to achieve, we implemented a program which we titled Dialogue for the Future. It's an interactive platform for the promotion of peace and social cohesion that was implemented in both NMR and McKinney, wherein we invited people from all walks of life, civil society organizations, students, paramount chiefs, traditional rulers. Then, of course, we organized in collaboration with the Office of the Vice President, the government CSO dialogue, the platform created for government to engage CSOs and the rights. So it was done also in local. Then, of course, we did a pre-launch of the citizens portal. So we engaged in of course, went to both Kenema and McKinney to start popularizing it because it is a platform that citizens will have to use in order to engage government on issues of national concern. Then, of course, from the projects we presented to the Ministry of Finance for 2023, we said we want to engage in civic and voter education initiative. So we want to organize 5 civic and voter education on citizens' roles and responsibilities for the consolidation of peace and social cohesion in the 5 regions. And second, stakeholders engagement. We want to organize 5 dialogue fora with traditional rulers, religious leaders, CSOs, CBOs, the media, on the promotion of peace and social cohesion in order to mitigate hate speech. Citizens engagement. We want to organize 5 citizens engagements on the achievements and challenges. We actually wanted to implement this in 2021, then we got it in 2022, but because of funds we are able to. So we want to see how we can popularize the achievements and the implementation of the medium-term national development plan. We include the achievements and challenges. Then we want to operationalize the citizens portal. We have already developed the portal, but the first thing we want to do is to launch, then we make it, popularize it, and then we start to use it. Yes, the government citizens portal, it's a mobile platform developed to enable citizens, which I used to refer to it as citizen-centric, participatory, democratic tool, which citizens can use to interact with government. That's basically what the portal is. It's a mobile platform. You can have your Android phone and then you able to chat. Then there will be back-end users who will be able to respond to concerns from citizens. Of course, political governance. We want to conduct 4 dialogue forums with political parties, stakeholders for the consolidation of peace and social cohesion. This is before, during, and after the elections. That is for 2023. No, yes, it's 2023, but it is government presented to the Ministry of Finance. Of course, the Ministry of Political and Public Affairs, like any other ministry, we have our challenges. Key among the challenges, one is the office space. The ministry is constrained and challenged by lack of adequate office accommodation for its staff. The ministry occupies only the central wing, 9th floor of UDB, and we have over 46 staff with, I think, 4 rooms, 4 offices. We have the office of the minister, the deputy minister, then the permanent secretary, and the rest. Then, of course, project allocation. If we look at the ceiling, the mandate of the ministry is so broad that our ceiling is 1.5. So even to access 1.5, yes, even to access our franchise is difficult, so difficult, extremely difficult. Then, of course, asset and working tools. As I speak, the ministry did not even have a policy to not to talk about people. You know, in our working tools, you see our computers, some of them are now outdated. Then the overlapping functions. You know, we have institutions that are performing roles that are similar to that of the ministry. We have the NCE, other institutions that are established. So it's making it difficult for donors even to come to our field. That is all for now, Minister.
Thank you very much. You have given us some insight as to what we were trying to ask for from 2023 to 2024. But I think can you really enlighten the public as to what you have done or we have done in 2022? Because the letter I think is quite explicit about that. It says what we have done this year.
Thank you, sir. Achievement for 2022. I said we implemented a program that we titled Dialogue for the Future. It's an interactive platform for citizens and government. Government institutions to engage. That was implemented in both Kenema and Makini. Then, of course, among the participants, we have traditional leaders, civil society organizations, tertiary institutions, and other key stakeholders. They are in attendance. The Dialogue for the Future platform. Then, in collaboration with the Office of the Vice President, we also organized a government CSO dialogue platform for DOCO. That was done in collaboration with the Office of the Vice President. Then, of course, we continue because, as I said, we have developed the government citizens portal. So we are able to relaunch the citizens portal. Then we engage SLAD, of course, we live in both Kenema and Makini. Because we want to start popularizing the since it has already been developed. I think we had that.
Thank you very much, Director. He has really elaborated on some of the programs that we've done. And as is mentioned, our ministry is really so, the mandate is so wide that we get involved in other issues with other ministries. And so, can I call Dr. Silva of the APRM, or you could even know just about the APRM?
Thank you. Honorable members of Parliament, members of civil society, ladies and gentlemen. Before going to what we do at the APRM, I have this good news to share with all of us present here. That in 2018 we elected a president, and that president has been endorsed by his peers. When we talk about APRM, the African Peer Review Mechanism, the peers we are referring to here are heads of states and governments. And Sierra Leone signed or acceded voluntarily to the APRM, which is the voluntary accession. So Sierra Leone acceded in 2004. APRM itself came into being in 2003. So the APRM has been with us here in Sierra Leone since 2003. A lot has been done, but for the purposes of this gathering, I will just limit this presentation to what has happened since I took over in 2018. Unlike other ministries, the activities of the APRM are not only done by Sierra Leone, as it is with all other 42 member states of the APRM. We work in collaboration with the Continental Secretariat, which is headquartered in Johannesburg, South Africa. So whatever we bring, we provide us technical advice, technical support, and the like. The APRM has a lot to do with what we are discussing about. We are speaking today about PR system, in order about the political system that best fits Sierra Leone. because in modern discourse, it is no longer about best practice, best fits. Because that is where we get it wrong. What might be a best practice for Sierra Leone might not be the same for Nigeria because we differ not only in economic terms, but even our political culture differs. Coming to the APRM has three national structures. Whatever obtains in Sierra Leone obtains in all 42 countries. We may differ in terms of numbers and the like, but that is it. These structures are statutory. We have in the first place, we have the focal point, the national focal point. Our national focal point for Sierra Leone is the Honorable Minister of Political and Public Affairs. And since the inception of the APRM in Sierra Leone, the focal point has always been the Minister of Political and Public Affairs. Thereafter, we have the National Governing Council, which is a variant of what others describe as Board of Governors, some others is trustees. That is the second. And then third, we have the National Secretariat, which is headed by my home office, which provides secretarial services. Our job is essentially governance. We talk about political governance. I don't want to preempt anything, but when we come to talk about PR system, you see where the APRM will come in. We talk about political governance and democracy. And I think what we are now talking about here, we are talking about political system, which one is best suitable for Sierra Leone. We really are talking about political governance and democracy. We also look at economic governance. We look at economic development. We look at corporate governance. And quite recently, we have a fifth pillar, state resilience to shocks and disasters. And I will also share that that fifth pillar was launched here in Sierra Leone in late 2021 when we launched the targeted review report on health governance and COVID-19 response in Sierra Leone. Prior to that, His Excellency the President Liu was actually thinking about the second generation review. It sounds complex, but we have done our first and second country reviews as a country, so that now qualifies us for the second generation review. But like I said in the area, we work in concert with the Continental Secretariat. Following the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Continental Secretariat appealed to 4 countries to embark to undertake targeted reviews with particular focus on COVID-19. And Sierra Leone was also identified or spoken to, because whatever the APRM Secretariat does, the sovereignty of the individual member state takes precedence over what the Secretariat does. So they requested the government of Sierra Leone and government gave them the go ahead. So we conducted that one. Our topic at that time was health governance and COVID-19 response in Sierra Leone. I'm proud to authoritatively say attention to several of what we did during the outbreak of the COVID, but we decided to focus there because your capacity or ability to deal with any uprising or any pandemic or emergency issue depends on the status prior to that pandemic. So we looked at all of that, and the recommendations we have shared with government, and in future they want to see whether in fact those recommendations have been implemented. Because whatever we do, at the end of the day, our reports are also incorporated into the National Development Program, which is why at the end of every targeted review, when we launch the targeted review report on health governance and COVID-19 response in Sierra Leone, that one was followed by a workshop on national program of action. So we did all of those ones. Then, come 2022, we still wanted to roll out our second generation review again. The Continental Secretariat again appealed to us alongside 10 other countries that, you know what, this thing is becoming commonplace now on our continent, particularly in West Africa, on constitutional changes of democratically elected government. So they also prevailed on us to conduct a targeted review on constitutional changes of government, with particular focus on some of the causes of constitutional changes of government. But more importantly, what do we do as a continent? to bring that plan to be stopped. We've just concluded that the report writing is ongoing. Once we get the draft, we will share that with relevant stakeholders. It will be validated, and it will also becomes part of the process. Because once that report is out, it will be followed once again by a national program of action, particularly in terms of how we can really bring this stuff to all of that. So by and large, for the APRM, that is what we do. We differ from all the research organizations because for us, it is not about yes or no. It is highly qualitative where we really meet people. We go around the entire country. In fact, we find more pleasure in speaking to those people who cannot tell us theories. Because the moment you ask Dr. Silva about certain days, it's about what we said. But this time it is about what is actually obtaining, and they told us that when the report is out, we will see that one. For 2023, before I land, I want to share with honorable members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that the APRM has already submitted a project. And one of the key activities we are thinking of, we want to change the strategy. I personally have discussed that with my book acquaintance on a number of occasions. I said we have been discussing almost the same issue since independence, or even before independence. We are still talking about rights. We still are talking about social cohesion. We are talking about a host of things. But we have not taken time. We have not even allowed ourselves time to see how do we overcome. So that is where creativity comes in. So already, once we get resources, perhaps early next year, we are going to change I don't know if you want to call it narrative, the debate. We look into the medium-term national development program, free quality education. The debate is no longer about whether it is doing well or not. How do we sustain it? That is where creativity comes in. Right. How do we overcome it? Because that is where people come. So that debate will not be really talking about, it is not about who wins, who loses. It is about how do we contribute to, for instance, the free healthcare, the free quality education, all that is contained in the medium-term national development plan. I think if we change our debates that way, this can help, it can do us more good than always this being in, we are coming here back and forth and the like. I'm pretty sure that when we start that one, perhaps it will harmonize and sanitize some of the discussions we used to have. So that is what I have for you. And I'm prepared to respond to any questions or any clarifications you want to ask. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Silva. Mr. Chair, how are we for time?
We'll take the PS and then we'll comment.
On that,
So
on
we can
that,
switch to PS.
yeah, on that issue, actually, let me just say, what Dr. Silva did not say is that Sierra Leone, since they've been doing targeted reviews, Sierra Leone is the first country that has ever produced targeted reviews reports. It's the first country that ever launched it. And also, the commendation has been coming as to how we have been handling issues here. And I can say our report on this COVID response was rarely acclaimed worldwide, and even some countries were advised to follow the Sierra Leone model. As little as we are as a country, it's not everything about us that tends to improve. The world recommended us, and some countries were asked to implement the Sierra Leone model. And that would be yes.
Thank you very much. Of course, I'm introduced as the Foreign Secretary, and I want to honor the professional head. He gave a rundown of our activities, but there is one area I actually want to bring out. That brought us to our additional mandates. Our additional mandates. On this mandates, we have received immediately after we have submitted our project. So they are not projected for. So it means we don't even have enough to carry out the previous mandates. So with this other mandates, it's going to be a big problem. And I want to read these mandates and see how critical they are. One is to collect data, develop and maintain database and management information systems for political governance. And over 26 data collection is a huge chunk research come into play. Second is to formulate policies, develop plans, and propose legislations and amendments for political governance. Now we are talking about policy here. To monitor the political landscape, political related policies, plans, programs, and projects. Yeah, so these are some of the mandates, and they border more on research, data collection, policy formulation, and of course, the promotion of civic and democratic initiatives, etc. And of course, resource mobilization for development of political governance, etc. So with this one, and then in addition to the previous that he has just mentioned, this is just a feature. I'm much more concerned about the resources. The resources are very paltry, definitely. Because the ministry programs are expensive, they are expanding. Yes, the amount of money that we actually receive is quite small. And at this time, we should be seeing in one of the two nooks and crannies performing our functions. Thanks very much.
And thank you, yes. I think what he's trying to say here is that I think there is discussion as to expanding or increasing the mandates of the Ministry of Political and Public Affairs. But these are, unless it is gazetted, then it becomes mandatory for us to follow that. But since it hasn't been, so I think we'll just let you know that there are discussions for the mandate of the ministry to increase. But also, actually, he's right in saying that okay, we have the current mandate, which we are finding difficult to implement because of, well, we all appreciate the fact that there will never be enough resources, and especially now that we have these issues all over the world, it's not easy to really handle the resources here, and that's the reason why I'm also the chair. I'm glad that you summoned us. We're also here to see how best we can get the committee to help us to implement our mandate appropriately. So on that note, I think that's the first part of our presentation.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, PS, and the professional heads. We take note of what you've provided and the documents. We'll have a series of meetings in the ministry to follow. Because we've merged the two meetings, we will not suggest that the colleagues that today will take your documents and visit the ministry and interact with you directly there. I was buying time as well to get some folks in, and I see that we do have a full room and we can switch then to the next conversation. We take note of this and we'll organize the meetings, except if colleagues have any burning questions on their minds.
No, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I don't think we have a contrary view on what you've already suggested. For me, we've listened to what the ministry has already said. We are asking them to do a paper to the committee, the recommendation, what do you think the committee will do as we move forward. I want us to move to the next point, that we bring all of these our partners here, so that maybe we'll listen to them too. For the ministry, we'll deal with them separately as we move.
I see no contrary view. Excellent. Thank you so much again for the documentation that was provided earlier to us, and again for informing the audience of what you have achieved and some of your challenges you face. We will follow up accordingly over the next 7 weeks, and actually also within the ministry. We are very grateful again for the quick response. And then we can switch to the bigger discussion. APRM also is indicated here on the proportional representation system. So for that, so that we have a good dialogue, we'll ask you, can you assist? We turn the chairs around.
We don't want to turn our backs.
Exactly.
I don't know whether I can just.
We'll turn the chairs around. We can turn the chairs around.
Sergeant, can you?
We'll turn the chairs around.
Just
turn it around here.
Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Just turn it
Bring it here. Just turn it
Push
around.
it. It's inside. No. Turn my lamp on. Push it. I don't know. Take your camera now, serve.
Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity then to set the stage for our dialogue. It's the beginning of a dialogue. I have no doubt over the next several weeks and months, we're going to have more discussions on this topic. Again, I'm grateful to all of you, quick notice, and so many people responded to be here. Here's how we're going to organize ourselves. I had asked Honorable Bernadette Lahai, former leader of the opposition, 3-term member of parliament, to give us a quick overview of the PR system. Fortunately, she had gone through it herself in the district block system, but she was also an opposition leader. She will help us set the stage. I have also invited Honorable Ibrahim Bundu. I don't know if he's in the room yet, and my big brother. Honorable, you're here? Good. Thank you for honoring us. We have to give you respect. Can you put a chair in front here for my brother? In Parliament, seniority matters. I'm still a junior compared to him, even though I'm leading a party here. He also has served as leader of government business. I asked some other former MPs, I see a number of them in the room. This is all about education, enlightenment, and having, as I said, a dispassionate discussion of proposals that we've seen or heard about. We've also invited a number of civil society groups, but I have also designated some of them, given what we've heard. We can listen to their discussions now in the public. Some have also done position papers. I wanted to give them an opportunity to elaborate some of those to the MPs, and I'm very grateful. I see several of our MP colleagues have come and they're sitting there in the middle and in the back of the room. It's about enlightenment, it's about free dialogue on issues that are so important. After we listen to Dr. Bernadette Lahai's presentation, I'll call on civil society groups who I have asked to come in and talk to us. And I'll call them in a certain order to also react to some of what they've heard, but also give us their position. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful that the Deputy Attorney General could make it. He had a retreat today, but he had indeed promised me that he will come. I'm very honored that you could be here. We'll come to Q&A and we'll give those instructions soon. There are some people also online. If you want to engage in this dialogue during the Q&A session, you will have to use your raise hand button so that we can recognize you from the screen and have you participate. And I'm told that many people have logged in, people are curious, they want to learn, but they also want to see how we begin this dialogue. So I'll have you go first. Thank you for giving us time. You can come in front and talk to us a little bit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for inviting me. I wanted to put my presentation in context by sharing some statistics. So it's very important that we have spoken about the PR system and the first past the post, but we also need to know some statistics in terms of, at the end of the day, what has been the outcome in terms of our governance. So I'll start with some statistics. Since 1992, we have conducted 5 elections in Sierra Leone. 1996 was a proportional representation national list system with 68 members of parliament plus the 12 paramount chief members of parliament. So that parliament was actually 80 members. Of course, we use the whole country as a constituency, and every political party was expected to present a list of their nominees, we had a threshold, and that threshold gave every political party the required number of members of parliament. In 2002, we had a district block representation. The whole country was divided into 14 administrative districts, and each district had 8 constituencies. So we ended up having 112 members of parliament plus 12 paramount chief representatives. In the district block system, every district had 8, and all the 8 constituencies, the political parties were required to present 2 lists. The priority list on one list, numbering 8 MPs, and the second list, the alternate list, again having 8 members on that list, so that at the end of the day, political parties won according to the number of votes they got. At that time, it was 12.5%. So I can speak for my political party, SFPP. What we did was, we now went into all the districts to get the constituencies. Getting the constituencies meant that some districts had the luxury of having additional seats to play. For example, Kenema district, before the war, we had like 10 constituencies from 16 chiefdoms. Now having to compress that into 8 constituencies meant certain chiefdoms were collapsed. In Bond, for example, they used to have 5. Now they have the luxury of 3 more. That was why if you went to Bond district, the Bond city itself, once from one street to the other, it was a constituency, another street to the other, it was a constituency. So they had a luxury. Pujol used to have 6. They now had 8. So they decided that they would give 1 seat to a female and 1 seat to youth. In fact, that was how Manapaka came. He came not as Manapaka, but as representing the youth. And in parliament, we used to call him the youth MP. We all know the next Manapaka. So, for example, in Kailang, they have 2 extra seats. So they decided to give the 2 extra seats to women. That was how Honorable Lydia Kutubu and Honorable Agnes Koba came to Parliament in 2002. Kenema was a problem because we used to have 10 now, and then now 8. It was a big scramble. We didn't have the luxury, so it was very acrimonious. Every contestant went to their constituencies. It was not like the district sitting and just coming up with a list. Everybody presented themselves from the district they came, from the constituency they came. I came from Kenema East. Lower Bambara was a single constituency because it's a big chiefdom. And there were 3 of us that contested. Myself, my 2 late uncles, Bibikwi and late Morilami. We went around the constituency, we campaigned, and we presented ourselves before the Electoral College. We were interviewed one by one, my policy, what I want to do, what I have contributed to the political party before, and what I will contribute. Then, after that, the Electoral College voted, and they came up with 2 candidates. My late uncle, DBP, was a priority candidate, and I was the alternate candidate. So that was what happened in all the 14 political districts of the Syrian People's Party. I know that other political parties also had their own means of coming up with the list. 2007 was the first past the post. Of course, we all know what the first past the post. Simple majority. 1 member per constituency. Again, it was the same process. You go to a constituency, you get yourself nominated, you go through the nomination, and you get elected. In 2012, it was first past the post, 112 parliamentary seats, 12 PCs, 124. In 2018, the number of parliament seats was increased from 112 for ordinary members to 132 for ordinary members. Now the district also had increased by 2, so that was why we have 14 paramount chief members of parliament. What were the numbers? The numbers are important under the 2 systems. In 1996, we had 13 political parties contesting. Out of the 13, 6 political parties won seat in parliament. SNPP 27, UNPP 17, PDP 12, APC 5, NUP 4, and DCP 3, a total of 68 seats. In 2002, 10 political parties contested under the same district block representation. 3 political parties eventually won seats in parliament. SNPP 83, APC 27, and PLP 2, giving us a total of 112 seats plus our 12 paramount chief MPs. In 2007, 7 political parties contested. 3 political parties won. APC had 60, SNPP 42, and PMDC 8. But in the course of the 5 years, there were by-elections for 2 members of parliament from the PMDC seat. They lost the 2 seats and SNPP won. So by the end of that parliamentary year, SNPP had increased to 44 seats. In 2012, 9 political parties contested under the PRs, under the first past the post. We had only 2 political parties winning. That was the APC 17 and SNPP 42. In 2018, 17 registered political parties contested, but only 16 contested with the presidential candidate. So we have 4 political parties winning seats in parliament, and then 3 independents for a long time, and maybe for the first time for many years. And then we have our 14 paramount chief representation. Next slide, please. It is important for me to bring in this issue of women because the discussion has also been that PR is good for increasing women's representation. So I thought I would just bring it in here for our own education. In 1996, we have 5 women out of the 68. That was 7.1%. In 2002, under the district block, we had 19 women, 15.3. In 2007, that number reduced under the first past the post to 16. And then, in the course of the 5 years, one of our members was elected, was appointed as minister, but her replacement was a man. So that is why we have that. In 2012, 15 women came to parliament. We lost one as a result of death. She was replaced by a man. Then we lost another woman. She was appointed minister. She was replaced by a man. So we saw the reduction in the percentage. And then, of course, we now have the 2018. We started with 18 women. Because of the petition, 3 lost. So the number reduced. There was the by-election in 113, 110, one came in, so the number went back to increase by 1. And then Kailamu, there has been 2 by-elections or 3, and they all fielded women. That is why in the current parliament, Kailamu has almost exceeded, or got to the minimum 30% under the first past the post. There are now 4 women active members of parliament from Kailamu. We need to give them credence for that. Yes, quickly. So comparison of the 2 electoral systems was selected variables, because it's also important that we selected some variables to see how those variables fared, between the ones. So political party representation in parliament, we have got the highest number of political parties represented in the elections in the first past the post, that is this election 17, but in the 2PR also, seconded by the 2PR, that is in 1996 and 2002. Representation in parliament. In terms of the number of political parties, we have got the lowest under the first past the post in 2012, when it was only APC and SNPP. And we got the highest under the first past the post in 1996, when we have 6 political parties. In terms of independence, of course, we did not have independence under the first past the post, but we have had, but we have it under the first past the post. We now have 3. We've never had it. Of course, it's not appropriate or in the constitution that under the PR you have independence, but that does not mean that we cannot develop our own system. If you want to, as a country, we can discuss and debate. Female representation, we have had female presidential candidates under the 2 system. We have female vice presidential candidates under the 2 system. Of course, as elected party officials under the 2 system, there has been no difference. When you go to the political parties, really, the percentage of women in the structures have not really changed, whether it is PR or whether it's first past the post. And then female leadership, in parliament has really not changed between the 2 political parties. It has remained almost the same. Very few women in the leadership positions, very few women heads of committees, or very few women deputies. So that is the variable. Next variable. Election-related violence. Before, during, and after. For the first past the post, because it is first past single member constituent election, violence happens right through the electoral cycle, one way or the other. Violence in the political parties as we contest for symbols, and even when you have got symbols, between political parties. Whereas for the PR, violence is concentrated at the symbol award for the PR. Because once you have elections, the PR has no by-elections, and therefore we don't have issues of violence coming from the elections. Then during elections, for both, you have widespread, because it is first past the post. Whereas for PR, it is no longer an issue. It is the votes that political parties get that brings members to parliament, or members of the candidates to parliament. So there, everybody is concentrated. There's no fighting in between members within the political party. There's cooperation, because the more you work hard to get votes for your party, the more your chances, if you are on the list, to get elected. After by-elections, of course, after the elections, the major political related violence will emanate from by-elections. By-elections wherein the ruling party or the opposition party wants to maintain their seats at all costs, and that by-elections normally are very acrimonious. Where there are election-related violence in PR, It may not emanate as a result of by-election. It may emanate because of other, incidences happening either between or within the political parties. Yes, next slide, please. Accountability and commitment to constituents. The argument is that because it's the political party that develops a list, members are not accountable to their constituents. The question is the chicken and the egg. Because who are these political parties at the constituency level? They are men and women who belong to political parties. They are the ones that have gone through the political parties' rules and regulations and elections. So they are at the party at either the constituency level, the district level, and the regional level. What the national executive will do, depending on how political parties organize their elections of their candidates, is for them to now agree on who to go on the list and the criteria they use to go on the list. So for me, accountability such as frequency of visits to constituencies, level of consultation on important bills and levels of the constituents, development undertaken by members of parliament. To me, there is no difference whether it is a PR or whether it's the first post. It depends on other variables. Because if I have said, depending on political parties' rules and regulations on single awards and parliamentary, individual MPs' disposition, how seriously they take their work. The constituents themselves, it's very important. Are they demanding? Are they forward-looking? Are they going out for probity? Do they understand the roles of the representatives? Resource availability to MPs, configuration and location of constituents. All of this would affect, the level of accountability of the constituents to their members, and not necessarily for me, based on my experience, on whether it was PR or not PR. The next slide, we are just going to finish. Effectiveness of parliamentarians. I said under the two, effectiveness has not much to do with the political system under which an individual is elected. It has to do with, for example, availability of resources for parliamentarians to work. If resources are not there, it doesn't matter whether we are selected under PR or first past. It doesn't matter. If the parliament is not financed, if the human technical capacity of parliament is not built, if the logistical resources parliament needs to do their work is not available, and all of these things, the independence or the interference of the executive, all of them will not really matter whether it's under the first past the post or PR. What matters with regards to the effectiveness are some of these variables. Next slide. Capacity of parliamentarians. What we saw under the first past the post and the PR, first of all, we now have relatively younger MPs under the first past the post compared to the PR. The PR, where the age range was maybe 50 and 60. We had a lot of seniority. We had a lot of elderly people in those days, Then qualification. Because of age, a lot of people who come from the universities and just come to parliament or not. You see, there is a difference. Then previous work experience was high during the PR in the two systems, 1996 and now. Then on the job capacity building, there's no difference because nobody learns parliamentary work outside of parliament. So when you come to parliament, everybody goes through on-training, parliamentary on-training, both in and out of the country. So it doesn't matter whether there is first past the post or not. The potentials and the provisions, if they are there, then they will make a difference. If they are not there, they won't make a difference. Female leadership, as we said, have not really made much difference between the two systems at all. Then conclusions. The highest number of political parties in parliament has been under the PR system. Of course, what I failed to say was that all of these elections have taken place within a different socio-economic political milieu, and they also affect the outcome of the elections. The 1996 election was a conflict election because while the war was still raging, elections went on. So the environment and socio-economic environment was different, political was different. In 2002, just after the war, in May, we had the elections. The environment has changed, the world has changed, the world has finished, but we are still grappling with a lot of problems. The 3 first past the post elections have been the development stage of our country, wherein most of the democratic institutions have been put together. There was no war, so the environment again has been different, and it dictates also what happens in elections. The highest percentage of female representation has been under the PR system. Potential for independent candidates has been high under the first past system. Accountability of representatives to constituents depends on the rules and regulations of political parties on candidate selection and other variables that I have also mentioned. Election-related violence is relatively high under the first past the post before, during, and after, especially after due to where they are pending by elections, wherein member political parties want to either add to their numbers in parliament. Last slide, please. Yeah, both electoral systems have the potential to increase women's political participation, especially for elective positions, if backed by some form of affirmative action. PR system without affirmative action will not help to increase the proportion of women. First past the post without affirmative action. We've seen it in South Africa. South Africa, Rwanda, they are using the proportional, but they have affirmative actions in their constitutions. Uganda and Kenya have affirmative action both in their constitutions and in their electoral act. So, but because one is the first past the post, South Africa and Rwanda, backed by affirmative action. Rwanda and Uganda and Kenya is first past the post, backed by affirmative action. The outcomes are slightly different. In the absence of both PR and affirmative action, like in the case of Sierra Leone, female representation will always be low or even reduce or be stagnant. That is what we have seen. We have seen 1996, 5, then we went to 19, and then we went to 15, we went to another 15, and now even when we have 19, but the percentages are said that they are low. Then in the absence of genuine, sincere, and consistent political will can make a whole lot of difference in our governance, especially in the electoral system. Conclusion. Okay. Political parties will need, this is continuation, political parties will need to reform their legal instruments and internal party democracy to enhance good governance. It's very important, irrespective of whether it is the PR or the first party. Targeted, continuous, and sustained capacity building, strengthening are imperative and key to members' effectiveness. So, recommendations. It is up to us as Sierra Leoneans, and only as Sierra Leoneans, to come together to dialogue so as to agree on our own homegrown electoral system that will work for us. Nothing is going to work if we don't come together and discuss and agree. If it is a PR system that will be used for the 2023 election, then we as a country and people should ensure that the following obtains. We must devise a selection of election procedure in our political parties that will hold or make representatives more accountable to the constituents. Because one of the arguments of the PR is that it's the political party, the leadership that puts the list. But as I had explained, all my 5 years in 2002, I was recognized as a member of parliament by my people. It is to them I went. They didn't call on any other member of parliament. It was me and they that they recognized as a member of parliament. Because we went there and we subjected ourselves to the electoral process of elections. We must ensure that there is inclusivity of especially smaller and newer parties, minority ethnic groups, and vulnerable and marginalized groups, such as women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Meaning we must agree as a nation on an appropriate threshold level that will help us achieve this inclusivity. If the threshold level is high, only the maybe one or two major parties will at the end of the day sit in this parliament, which will defeat the argument of PR as the one that ensures that smaller parties come to parliament. There is more inclusivity of as many groups of society as possible. We must give more autonomy to the representatives to make law and decisions in the best interest of the nation, and not necessarily their political parties. Of course, mindful of 77K and F of the 1991 Constitution of Sierra Leone. We still have 8 months to dialogue and come to a consensus on the above. After all, laws are made for the benefit and enjoyment of man, and not man for the law. I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Honorable Lanai, for framing the issues and also giving us that past experience. So I will turn to the civil society representatives or the MPs who came late. Today we're listening to civil society. As I said, it's the beginning of a dialogue. So we'll give them the opportunity to speak to us, because when we did set the date for the question time for the principal managers of the electoral process, civil society will not be on the floor. So today we are listening and getting notes at Q&A session. If people have more clarification they need, will allow it. So the first person I'll call on will be Madam Marcella Samba Sise. For each of those I'm calling up, you really have 5 minutes to make your case. If you have written documents, we'll be very happy to circulate. And for the case of preparation, and Mr. Andrew Lavali can prepare, he'll come next. Thank you very much for agreeing to share experiences with us. Marcella, you have the floor.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Yampala. And also, good afternoon to the Honorable Members of Parliament and all representatives present. Just very quickly, before I go to my point, let me hasten to mention that the interest in today's occasion has signaled the need for healthy discussions. And I saw from a political participation point of view, as many citizens reaching out to me that this is the way to go. And I must submit that healthy conversation and dialogue is the bedrock of democracy. Honorable members of Parliament, it is important also that I make some very quick responses to the presentation of Honorable Dr. Bernadette Lai. Honorable, those presentation and those points were really good. But one thing I need to mention is that every political and electoral systems are influenced by the political, social, and cultural attitudes of the time. So there is no best political system, there is no best electoral system until that system is developed. And that is the standpoint of National Elections Watch. As an election observation outfit, you will never see us in public debating PR versus what's supposed. No, we will not. What we do, we want to understand the enabling socio-cultural and political positions that govern certain decisions. And it's from that point that we made our open letter to the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone. We want to believe that any product of electoral and political system must be consultative, and it should be a product of consensus. That's our first standpoint. The second point that we want to make known, and I think the open letter reiterates a number of questions that are in the public domain. And I also wear the Citizens Participation Hat because I am Executive Director for Campaign for Good Governance Groups, promoting citizens' engagement in government. It is also important that I underscore the point that democracy, elections, and political participation can only be meaningful when citizens are put at the center. You know, Chair of the committee, as we are discussing this now, we need to understand that we need processes and patterns to let citizens' voices to bear on this discussion. And that's why we are worried as to how many people understand what we are talking about, because very little discussions have been done formally on this particular system. So making sure that citizens' views are at the heart of this discussion. For us also, as a citizens observer group, we believe that the cardinal principle of elections and electoral processes is creating a level playing field for all candidates and political parties. We are worried as to the way and manner decisions are taken and how stakeholders are starved of information. Long ago, I remember, I think it was 2012 or 2007, one of the things that we came up with as a local observer outfit is the timeliness of information and how they are distributed to various political parties and making sure that all of them get the information at the same time. Because information is powerful in elections. And so one group getting information in time and the other at a later date gives undue advantage to a particular category. So it is important that decisions should be made through a multi-stakeholder platform. And it is in that respect that the political party liaison committee was formed, so that all the 17 political parties and other stakeholders like National Elections Watch, who normally go to those meetings, get the information at the same time. So all stakeholders can process and take decisions on such issues, and no one is disadvantaged because information is power. We want to also mention, as I did say, this is not about X electoral system versus Y, because when you look at our socio-cultural and political context, people are proposing issues that OPR would make violent. No, it would not. If our political culture precipitates a situation where political parties, instead of dialoguing in this manner, are organizing around violence, we still see violence in OPR. So we need to understand that we need to engender a culture of openness and respect for conversation, not a culture of violence and attacks. That we need to know. So we also want to mention that whilst we are doing all of this, we need to look at what does the law says. Because our position is very, very clear. We want to ensure that the enabling conditions for free and credible elections are not eroded. Because in the final analysis, the legal framework is what we use to assess whether the elections are free and fair or free and credible. When I say we, I am not only talking about National Elections Watch, I am talking about all other observer missions that will be using the same parameters for measurement. Why is it that for all the past elections, elections observer outfits across the globe who have come to Sierra Leone have declared our elections free and credible? It is because it was done within the framework of the law. So we want to further argue that the ECSL announcement, first and foremost, to start a bank delimitation in August, we listened and it was in place. But we are worried that this decision was abruptly cancelled and a PR introduced. what condition exists. I think the public needs to know. I think people need to talk about it. Why did ECSL cancel the boundary delimitation and introduce a PR? What is the problem? So that conversation, in my opinion, as the head of National Elections Watch, a coalition of local observers, 400 in number, organization in number, we do not have that information. And for us to be able to understand that the process is free and fair, and for the process to be free from fear, because that is important, trust and integrity, it is important that that explanation is put in the public. Now, we have every reason to believe that the PR system and the boundary delimitation process that was cancelled was precipitated on the view that boundaries do not exist. We are yet to understand one, and it's a question that we ask very clearly in our open letter. We are asking whether the 2017 boundaries have been disturbed and what accounts for the dissolution. Remember, Chair, I said, going forward for the 2023 election to be acclaimed as free and credible, the parameters bordering around the legal framework and its implementation must be in place. So we need that clarity. If we decide that boundaries no longer exist, we need to understand it and explain it for consensus building. We are yet to get that. Of course, I've mentioned the need to consult with various political parties and other stakeholders to introduce processes or to launch processes. Consensus building is important. Chair, I'm drawing down very quickly. Now, the ECSL says that they don't have time to do the boundary delimitation. But we are worried if we would have time to plan for a PR system. Because from the look of things, there are certain aspects. We're moving to a multi-tier elections. There are certain aspects of the elections that do not have legal backing. We have examined the legal framework and they do not have legal backing for PR system. For example, the local council elections. Chair of the committee, it is also important, and this is something democracy promoters like us believe in. There are certain people who might not want to mingle. They don't want to be part of political parties. And for all the democracy building efforts that we boast of, it is the ability and capacity of independent candidates to come forward to say, I can run and I can win. We have had independent candidates in local council. We have had independent candidates in parliament. Now, I stand to be corrected because we are all learning human beings. I stand to be corrected. How are we going to ensure independent candidates are not left out of this development? And that is why I believe conversation and dialogue is at the center. In South Africa, an electoral and political process I am familiar with, when they looked at the unique context, they introduced an hybrid system. There are some aspects of the elections are done with first past the post, and other MPs come to power through the PR system because they took a critical look at their context and what they want to build. So it is my submission that a hasty decision to introduce the PR without fostering conversation and dialogue would miss it. Let's continue in this very healthy manner to ensure that more people are brought to the conversation and a decision that will benefit Sierra Leone is taken. And finally, and this is the big elephant in the room, Chair. Chair, we are bold enough because we saw it coming. And some of us, that's why, even if 5,000 people attack the head of National Elections Watch in a day, we still stand strong because truth is power. In 2021, we said the midterm census is going to cause a problem. Not because we do not like figures, not because we do not like data, But the circumstantial evidence presupposes that the electoral calendar will be tampered with. We are working on a very short time schedule amidst COVID-19, which have also taken time off. A number of things which needed to be done. The problem and predicament we now find ourselves in is as a result of the faulty data that the midterm census presents. My last question is whether proportional representation or not. What states are we talking about for the 2023 elections? This is critical as Parliament has also presented that the number of MPs for the next 6 Parliament is 132. But in all of this, decisions have to be made. What figures are we using? I am sure the legal framework equally has areas where information is on the most credible data that the ECSL can use. That's why some of us believe that because of the politics of data in this country, we are mobilizing efforts behind the National Civil Registration Information. Because what the National Civil Registration Information does, when it says that you are Marcelo Samasise, it is not only your name, it brings your biofeatures as well, so that we can account for every citizen. And the National Civil Registration data brings about not just, the registered voters, but the entire inhabitant of the locality, whether they are minors, whether they are people who are mentally insane, or whether they are foreigners. All of these people are in that state. So whilst we are doing democracy, don't forget that in the process also we are building peace. So our democracy is a twin concept. It goes with peace building. Let us manage this process very carefully, and I doff my hat to you, sir. This is the way to go, because this is a peace building platform where all of us can gather and think very straight and carefully and find a common decision to help build and sustain the peace. I thank you so very much.
Honorable Chair, ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with all protocols observed, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here to represent the Institute for Governance Reform. And thank you very much, Honorable Adekola Yonkela. You always make me proud to be a student of Christ King College. We are reconstructing Sierra Leone together. And in the process of reconstructing Sierra Leone, this wish, this hope that we all have, should not end up in being a new problem. And that's why this conversation is very important. I admire a comment made by Dr. Silva. He said, we need to derive the best fit. And I think Auntie Bernadette will echo that as well. What is the best fit? And why the best fit? So we see political parties theorizing, gravitating around political strategies, things that fit their interests. But in the midst of all of this, what is in the interest of Sierra Leone? And I think there was some, I don't know whether there is data available, but Dr. Bernadette, you did not mention something around the attrition rate between the PR. We know the attrition rate in the first past the post. In fact, when you say first past the post, it appears as if there is a post. There is no post to pass. There is no post to pass. You can get 30% and you're in parliament. You can get 40% and you're in parliament. There is no post to pass. So let us discuss what is important for today. We live in a country where productivity is very high. Unproductivity has become very high. Politicians have become a go-to place for lagis for many Sierra Leoneans. We've all become lazy. APC, SLPP, some of them are afraid to even go to their communities. We see, you've made rural communities very lazy. I was not alive by then, but my father used to tell me that Sierra Leone used to export rice. But the society in which we live today is different, and we can only recreate a better society if we start with a better politics. The few times I visited Freetown, Marcella was not privileged to live in Freetown, but I saw airlines dotted all over Freetown, and you can easily move from here to Sepadu, to Bong, 45 minutes, convene your meeting, and you're back. That's the Sierra Leone we want to see. Now we see young people fighting over people stopping them to do exam fraud. We live now in the world of push. How do we reverse that trend? How can we get a parliament that is productive? How do we get institutions that are accountable? I think that should be at the heart of and center of our conversation. Not how SLPP goes to parliament, how APC goes to parliament, not about the next election. It's about the next generation. So we see, and Marcella spoke about the elephant in the room. Let's crack the elephant in the room. We saw in the last election, the difference between the two parties in terms of parliamentary seats was around 14,000. But the difference in terms of number of seats is about 20 seats. 14,000 in numeric terms, the difference between the two parties should be around plus minus 2 seats. But the difference in terms of the SLPP and the APC is about 20 seats. And hence we have a hung parliament, and this parliament has been one of the most unstable. Because as Marcella mentioned, there's a politics of data. At any time you cry foul today about Freetown being undercounted, know that in 2015, Kenema was undercounted. At any time you cry today that Makeni lives matter, know that Kenema lives matter and Kailan life matter. Pujon life matter, Puglok life matters, Kambia life matters, every life matters. So we need to discuss the political system where every life matters. So we are not here to take a position. I think we are here to advise. My background is in political economics. So I think what was missing again in Dr. Banadeli's presentation is the financial cost of democracy. What is the financial cost of our democracy under PR? And what's the financial cost of our democracy under first past the post? Why am I talking about financial cost? Because if politics is not affordable, then we begin to talk about corruption. The last time we did a cost of politics study or paper on this parliament, we realized that the cost of MPs going to power, the cost of them retaining seats is way more than their salary. So is it better under PR? Is it better on the first past the post? And of course, then there's huge financial, political, moral, and institutional costs even in by-election. The kind of terror we saw in communities in Tongolili, 110, they don't want a repeat of those ones. So we're not talking about financial costs where society has lost about $3 million just in 16 by-elections over the last 24 months. So the financial cost is high. And the cost of by-election is quite enough to run the whole national election for Sierra Leone. So we need to think about what do we want. We have two censuses. Both camps, APC and SLPP, are claiming that the census conducted by their opponent is bogus. And we've utilized $24 million on two censuses. $24 million on two censuses. Both camps are saying you cannot do election using 2022 data for 2023 election. You cannot use the SLPP petition, the census. And by dint of their petition, we are seeing that whilst Bostimunda is getting 25,000 votes to go to parliament in Kenema, you have Lion Mara getting 3,000 votes in Alaba. So we have these structural imbalances. If we have all made mistakes, if we have all made mistakes, let us correct those mistakes. If we have all made mistakes, let us correct those mistakes. So the financial cost is very high, the political cost, the institutional cost. But then, hello. So here are my fears before I take my seat. And I want to join Dr. Lahai and Basela in expressing some of the fears about inclusivity, about sitting around the table and deriving a system that best fits us. Women's representation. I like to re-echo Lahai's point that we need to, if we are talking about PR, we need to back it with affirmative action. And not a manipulated affirmative action, an affirmative action for women, for young people. So we need to agree to that. We need to agree on inclusivity. I think what we need to demolish is this one region strategy of political parties. How can you say you're an effective politician when you are just good at mobilizing mandates to parliament or mobilizing team leads to parliament? You are not a national leader. So we need to demolish this one region strategy. So, and again, Dr. Lahai mentioned the threshold. In 2002, we had 5%. We need to go back to 5%. We don't need a system where you have a de facto, it reinforces a de facto two-party system. We need to have an inclusive multi-party system. And by lowering the threshold, we get that inclusive multi-party system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lahai. We now recognize Mr. Rashid Umwe of Legal Link. Rashid,
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm grateful to the committee and members of Parliament, Ministers, the Honorable Deputy Minister of Justice, and my colleagues, civil society. I'm happy to be here. I hope to make my presentation very brief. I have with me here a question paper from Legal Link, and I would definitely like to submit it afterwards. So I'm going to read like the two pages from it so that means we save time. Well, we have taken a stand, and the stand is what the Constitution says and prefers. And that's where we have done our research and we have taken a position. So we're not playing hot and cold. Our Constitution puts preference to the first to pass the post and makes PR a default only when certain conditions exist. And so today my position will be to give a critical analysis perhaps of the first past the post and the PR system, and see perhaps whether we can win hearts and minds again regarding going back to what the Constitution prefers. So let me start by saying that today in 2022, just about 8 months to the 2023 general elections, we've seen the call for a reintroduction of the proportional election system to be the modus operandi for the conduct of parliamentary elections in 2023. Of course, the opposition are pushing against it on the grounds of procedure and suitability. But whatever the arguments may be, this paper seeks to provide a critical analysis of the proportional election system as against the first past the post, and concludes by making a strong case as to why perhaps the first past the post is the better of the two evils in the conduct of parliamentary elections in Sierra Leone. So let me start by saying that first past the post is a voting method or electoral system in which citizens of the constituency cast their votes for the candidates, and the candidate with the majority of votes wins the election. On the other hand, a proportional election system is a voting method or an election system in which citizens cast their votes to the political parties and seats are allocated to the contesting parties according to the voting strength they possess. Proponents of the PR system have argued that it allows for more than one candidate to be selected from the constituency. These political parties get seats in proportion to the votes pooled by them. They also advance other advantages such as making for room for social cohesion, non-violence elections, non-wasting of resources, and allows for minority parties to be represented in parliament. Notwithstanding the above seeming advantages, however, a deep look at this first past the post and PR system will reveal that these so-called advantages of a PR system are more apparent than real. For example, while the PR system puts the party of the people, the most outstanding merit of the first party system is that it puts the people at the center of the electionary process. That is, citizens cast their votes for the candidates of their choice. They participate directly in the process of determining their representatives and further hold them account where they fall short of their expectations. Through the proper postal system, citizens know the candidates they vote for and will always keep them on their toes. Unfortunately, such is lacking in the PI system, as the party determines the candidates based on a list and not the citizens. Hence, the relatives cannot be known by citizens, nor can they be directly held to account by them. This disconnect between people and their representatives is perhaps the strongest and compelling reason why legally particularly prefers the first past the post as against the PI system. Secondly, unlike the PI system, independent candidates are guaranteed a secure space to contest under the first past the post system when they feel cheated or marginalized by their parties. This was evident in 2018 elections where independent candidates did contest and win seats in parliament without any support from the parties they designed for. Providing such an alternative route is key, especially in determining or attaining people's will and suppressing corruption under first past the post system. Conversely, no room is created for the event candidates to contest under the PI system if their names are not put on the list or are placed below the list or are outrightly neglected. In the PI system, the party's decision reigns supreme, and an aggrieved candidate must learn to live with it irrespective of how they feel. In 1996 and 2002 elections in Sierra Leone, which were done under the PI system, no independent candidate took part in the parliament elections, thus underscoring the points raised above. Even though it has been a rumor that the PI system has been introduced by NEC, now ECSL will consider independent candidates. In the opinion of Legal Link, this is just a decorated rumor and a mere sweet talk by ECSL and should be taken as such. If this was the case, then it will have been long introduced in 1996 and 2002 elections. Furthermore, the argument that the first party post does not create room for minority party representation is also fallacious and misleading. This is so because in 2018 parliamentary result statistics, we know that minority parties as well as independents are currently represented in parliament. If the above argument was true, why did this happen? As a matter of fact, also, these parties, NGC and C4C, were new parties contesting for the very first time and winning seats in both APC and SLP stumbles. This certainly underscores the point that the first party post system makes room for minority parties and independent voices. Also, the claim that unlike the first party post system, the PI system attacks less or no violence during elections cannot only be disillusion, but a mere utopian claim. In the view of Legal Link, electoral violence occurs as a result of selfish politicians and party operatives who stoke violence and heretics in elections, as well as the failure of the state security system to effectively police public elections. It has nothing to do with the type of electoral system being practiced. For example, when there was genuine will and commitment by political parties, election management bodies, and the state security apparatus to ensure a non-violent and peaceful by-elections at Farmer Bendugu, it is on record to be one of the most peaceful and orderly by-elections conducted by ECSL in recent times. But when these parties and election management bodies choose not to do the same in constituency 110 elections, that election is on record to be one of the worst elections in the history of Sierra Leone in terms of electoral violence and ballot stuffing. Hence, Legal Link wishes to be known that electoral violence is never the making of an electoral system, but rather a failure of political parties to play by the rules and the neglect of state institutions to police the elections professionally and hold by the trust to account. Moreover, attacks to the first party post system also decried on the grounds that it weakens social cohesion, entrenches strong loyalty, increased political tensions, weakening animosity as a result of intense competition and winner take all features that is prevalent under such a system. Contrary to the above, it is claimed that the PI system makes social cohesion, unity, and a cohesive society. This cannot be more misleading and far from the truth. In the opinion of Legal Link, social cohesion, peace, and cohesiveness cannot be a deliverable of an electoral system, but rather an outcome of good laws, policies, and programs that encompasses respect for human rights, rule of law, independence and impartial judiciary, fair and equitable resources of the nation, mature political culture, tolerance, independent institutions, and accountability for police brutality, to name but a few. And for such to be ensured, the executive arm of government has a greater role to play in ensuring safety. The argument also that PI enhances women's quota and position in parliament more than the first party post is also most laughable of all arguments. If this was true, then 1996 and 2002 elections, Sierra Leone would have easily attained the 5% quota for women in parliament. In debunking this situation, however, legally maintains that it is even likely that women's position on the list generated by the party under the PR system may be minuscule, or women candidates may be neglected or placed far below the list, which might impede their chances of making it through. Conversely, the possibility may even exist for many women candidates with hidden symbols under the first past the post to contest in some roles as to make their victory a sure win. In our opinion, therefore, the issue about the increased women participation rests on the willingness of the leadership and executive members of the party, as well as the passing of affirmative action and laws by the executive and parliament to increase women participation in the electoral system. More negative still under the PI system, there are too much complexities and formulas to grapple with, thus creating confusion and apathy for the electorate. As it stands at the moment, even opponents of the PI system are yet to agree on the type of formula and species of PI system that could be adopted. With little time remaining for the 2020 elections, coupled with the less public education and decision to agree and sell these formulas out to political parties and the public, and introduction of the PI system at this time will certainly lead to a boomerang. All right, let me end quickly with this last point, Mr. Chairman. It's very important. Yes, I'm going to say something important to the House. In conclusion, legally holds the view that despite its liking for the first past the post system, which appears to be the lesser of the two evils, and it puts people above parties, none of the above electoral systems can on its own comprehensively address the online rhetoric and nuances that would have been a democratic system national process. If a cohesive society is to be maintained, sustainable outcomes ensured, and election violence eliminated in a national process, it will require a change of political culture and investment by the arm of government to social goods, infrastructure, tolerance, inclusive government, respect for human rights, rule of law, independent judiciary, fair and equitable resources of the state, only the free, fair, and equitable elections, existence of independent institutions, and ensuring accountability for police brutality. These are certainly the two parameters and enablers that will make for social cohesion and a peaceful, cohesive Sierra Leone, not the PR system. Thank you.
We recognize Mr. Ibrahim from New York, followed by Madam Valnora from 5050.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kande Ukela. I'm vertically challenged, so if you don't mind me standing there. Thank you very much, Honorable and members of the committee, honorable members of Parliament, ministers, colleagues, CSOs, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely pleased to be here, and thanks for organizing this discussion. Perhaps we should state at this stage that none of what is being said here is going to determine where we go from here. In other words, we are only trying to contribute to a conversation that is going on in the case of A versus B, or ABC versus SFP, NDC versus C. Let us relax, man. Let's enlighten, let's have a discussion. I see so much tension in the air. Relax. A decision has been made. This is my point. This is the point I'm trying to make. A decision has been made. And as I said days ago, two things, the only two things that will reverse that decision are a decision by the Supreme Court to strike it out, or through consultations of this nature, the president and ECSL realize that it is the wrong way to proceed and they reverse it. So let us bear that in mind as we have this conversation. Broadly, Mr. Chairman, the two key things that I've had, even perhaps from Dr. Mahai's presentation and indeed from my colleagues, are A, whether the system is legal, and B, the strengths or weaknesses of the PR system. I'll try to avoid the legal aspect of it because who knows, we might wind up in court and I may very well be consulted. So I'll leave that for now. But let me say at this stage that no matter what happens, and this is going to be a profound statement, and I said it before, let me say it again, no matter what happens, we should not go by the 2017 boundaries for the simple reason that Mr. Andrew Lavalley articulated. You all had it. What those boundaries produced is not democracy. It is not representative democracy. Ours is a representative democracy. If you have a system that ensures or produces such imbalance, then you are putting yourselves to be thinking that you have a representative democracy. Which leads me to the whole point about the PR system. What the PR system does, that perhaps no other system does, depending on the variant that we decide to use, is to ensure that political parties, in our case of course, get seats in proportion to the votes that they pull at elections. Plain and simple. Let's stop messing around this issue. It is only the PR system that will ensure that you have members of parliament who are representing parties based on the votes that they have pulled. Mr. Lavalley talked about the fact that we've spent $24 million on 2 censuses, and both parties, I mean, APC and SFP, can't seem to agree with the data. And Mrs. Sambase said the midterm census data is flawed. Let me tell you what is really serious about what we're discussing. And as I've said, there is no way we can go into the 2023 elections with the 2017 boundaries, and we will not produce what we saw here in 2018, when members of parliament were kicked out of parliament, court later kicked them out. Because when you build a democracy on a flawed system, what you will see is a tension that we have seen over the last 4 or 5 years. And we come here, sit and pretend like it was all rosy, and therefore it's only people who want to be charlatans who are policing this. No. Create a system that is fair by everyone. If it's fair by everyone, we can all see through it and accept it. The 2017 boundaries produced a parliament that did not reflect the number of votes cast in this country. Let's tell the truth to power, and regardless of your political persuasions, you have to take that home and work with the powers that be to ensure that we fix that. So 94 countries in the world practice a PR system. 94 countries in the world practice a PR system. And don't come here and tell us that in all those countries, citizens are held as slaves. They do not determine who go to parliament. It's a way you count your own system. It is what you want, and that's why someone talked about best fit. And that's why Dr. Lai talked about making sure that there is a consensus on what we want that reflects our context. I can challenge anyone that will produce a PR system that ensures that we may, in fact, I was suggesting the other day, imagine if you do a zigzag, a zipper system, 1 man, 1 woman. You have a parliament with 50% women represented. And that's how leaders should think. Transform, this is just get a zipper system, 1 man, 1 woman. By the time we get past 2020 elections, you have 50% of members of parliament will be women. I challenge the male politicians in particular to do that. And all of this noise about 10%, 50%, 5% women will be done. It presents perhaps the biggest opportunity to ensure that not only in parliament, but perhaps in appointed positions. So let's think about that. I'd also like to address the issue of independent candidates. My friend, Mr. Dubuya, and I had this part the other day, was a friendly one. And we came down to this conclusion that in our constitution, independent candidates cannot run for the office of the president, right? I am more than 40 years, so I'm entitled. And on my own merit, I think I can give the president the good of for his body. But I cannot unless I join the political party. And you say my right doesn't matter? No. And his response was, well, the constitution doesn't allow you to run as an independent candidate. And I said, then the same constitution doesn't allow independent candidates to run in a PR system. So both are constitutional. So what are we talking about? There's no argument there, because the reason I cannot run as an independent candidate for the office of president is because the constitution precludes me from running as an independent candidate for the office of the president. Similarly, in a PR system, the constitution precludes an independent candidate. So what is the force about the PR system not allowing independent candidates in our contest? But by the way, Like Dr. Lahai said, if we want, and if we have an agreement parliament, we can amend our constitution to make that happen, because there are other systems where independent candidates are allowed to run in a PR system. It is not like the system is created such that an independent candidate cannot run. It is our constitution that says independent candidates cannot run. If we fix our constitution, we'll make that happen. Somebody talked about NGC, and that's my friend again, NGC and C4C, minority parties came to parliament. That is true. But if you look at the votes that NGC particularly put, I believe that NGC could have put more than the number of seats you guys put. It was a PR system. And depending on the threshold. So let us come to this conversation with two broad points. Again, as I've said, unless it is struck down by the Supreme Court, we are going to go into this election with the PR system. Or unless through these kinds of conversations, we get to a point where we say, okay, let's defer the 2020 elections. Because by the way, and it's important that we understand this, what the ECSL has said is this: the only reason they have not continued with because it's important that we educate members of the public, they hold us in high esteem. We are supposed to be representative of knowledge. So when we speak, let's educate members of the public. They have said the reason they are not proceeding with the limitation of boundaries is that they may infringe on the 6-month rule in the Constitution, in the Public Elections Act, whereby they will be working on boundaries less than 6 months before the elections. So if we say they must continue with boundaries limitation, we must propose one thing: defer elections beyond June 2023, and give yourselves, I'm only saying, let's come up with recommendations. It makes no point to spend the entire thing here without concrete recommendations. Extend the date for elections and give yourselves enough time to do fresh boundaries. Because the Constitution says that where a new set of data has been generated, ECSL must draw fresh boundaries. ECSL is saying we cannot do so now because A, we may infringe on the law, but also we do not have the logistics of the capacity and all of that. So the only way you can deal with that is extend the election date and drop those boundaries. Alternatively, you now are left with only one choice, which is the PR system, because, as others have argued, the 2017 boundaries cease to exist the moment you have a new set of data that is inconsistent with the data upon which those boundaries were drawn. So once again, members of parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I think that these discussions are important, and we should continue to engage members of the public in a very constructive and enlightened way with a view to getting the best for the people of Sierra Leone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have only 2 speakers after Valnora, and then we'll come to the government side and the MPs. So after Madam Valnora, we'll have Mr. Fatoma from Charlie, and also Madam Sally Way from Women's Forum. Then we'll transfer to our session. Over to you, Madam Valnora.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to add my voice to applaud this initiative. I think within a democratic process, it's important that citizens have the opportunity to debate. Their voices need to be heard. And even if a decision has been arrived at, but it helps to inform that decision, and every citizen can own the process moving forward. And it is within that framework that I would just like to share some reflections. I think, firstly, we need to continue this conversation in a structured and composed manner. And I think all voices need to be heard because, again, it helps to inform moving forward. We need to ensure that whatever decision we arrive at stands the test of time and is beneficial to all, not just a few. The issues we've heard, issues around violence, issues around women's participation, It's just a reflection of the wider governance issues that we've been dealing with over time. And from the presentation made by Dr. Bernadette Lahai, it shows that whatever electoral system we have will not necessarily address those problems, but it's about what the wider governance and democratic culture and posture is that will help to solve those problems. Because to date, we're still having a conversation around the gender equality bill that has been in Parliament with our distinguished honorable members for quite some time now. The 50-50 group did a press release, and I would just like to highlight some of the points mentioned. One was the issue around the legality. Again, it's a question, it happens in two ways. One is about, there are questions about legality that citizens are not too aware about, and I think that's why we allude our voice to the issue around information sharing. How do you ensure you educate the public? Some level of information might have been disseminated, but maybe it's a continuous process so that we are all on the same page, because the process is not for one or few, but for all of us. We also talk about citizens' knowledge, and I want to build on some consultations we did. We had Dr. Bernadette Lahai, we had Dr. Spencer, the 50-50 group, who were around the country for about 2 weeks, and we were having a conversation with women. One would argue that previous electoral systems were not well understood by all, even though they participated. But in the analysis, you can see a good number had no idea. Partly because some had not even voted when we practiced the PL system. They were old enough, but they had not participated. So it's a new issue, and that's why the issue of the schedule within the electoral calendar becomes an issue. When can we actually understand this process? What could be mechanisms that will be put in place so that it becomes a meaningful set of citizens' participation? And we also say that based on the fact that I'm also a member of National Elections Watch, who've been involved in voters' education, citizens' education since 2002, and you realize that people vote or participate without being well informed. And over the years, we are trying to ensure that there is more information, more knowledge about the process rather than voting based on regional or other biases. The representation of women, I would like to add that it depends on the internal party democracies. And it's interesting, I've been going through the constitutions or the frameworks of a lot of political parties, and some of them have had it for years. Some political parties have already had their lower level elections or their executive elections from the lower level to the national level, and the representation of women is dismal. So it's not about the electoral system that will address that, but the internal party democracy. In terms of moving forward, it's just to recommend, again, information flow about how independent candidates would contest. So it's sort of an administrative or policy document that needs to inform all of us, whatever electoral system we're having, what are the guidelines? What needs to change? What would be new, so that we all understand? It's also about how parties can ensure, regardless of what system they're putting in place, that there are party primaries so that the citizens themselves can participate adequately. And lastly, I'd like to say, the context in which we had exercised or we had utilized the PR system was completely different from this one. So if, and I underline, if we plan on moving forward, we have to realize that this is a completely different context, and therefore take cognizance of the current environment. And the very last point is to ensure that whatever decision we make helps to build social cohesion and peace in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas Chadi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to use this opportunity to stand on established protocol, for this meeting. Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, we are happy and we also welcome this very invitation. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, our organization, we are worried. Listening from the preparation from the political party, the political affairs ministry, with 46 staffs, with several huge challenges with resources. And as a country, we are about switching to another second option of our electoral system. We are switching to a system that is not new to us. It's not new to us. We used to. And the preparation, are we as citizens mentally fit to switch into the PR system? If this would have been, the argument for those who are in position or have huge interest for the PR system. And how do we go about it? The Ministry of Political Affairs share with us the citizens portal, but it's not existing, even pre-launch. Nobody can use it. And how citizens can have access to this participatory information. And for us, in the human rights angle, these are one of the fundamental rights for citizens. Their right to participate. And democracy is about participation. You also look at those who argue with the Constitution. I have some constraint. Where do we get the laws from the Constitution? Even have members of parliament who are independent. How were they referred to from the Constitution? Either first past the post, and definitely we know that in the proportional representation, we don't definitely have a position for them. And our organization have been advocating to ECSL to ensure that we create a provision for people who don't want to buy into any established political party ideology, but they think that the human rights activist, I will stand as an independent candidate. When I get to parliament, I will promote human rights issues. If you are an environmental rights activist, you want to go to parliament and ensure that your agenda is to, campaign about climate change. Agriculturists who want to go there for food security. So these are the kind of conversations that we need. Joining others to talk about the inclusivity, how inclusive our parliament will be. Coming back to members of parliament, I think our politicians in this country, to some very large extent, has been very, being insincere with us. They are very dishonest with us. They are not truthful to us. Members of parliament, this very parliament, knows that we have this law in our constitution. It's there existing. The day for the constitutional amendment towards the electoral review system, members raised concern about the PR system. Cleverly, the Speaker of this Parliament said that particular item is not on this agenda. But the interesting catch there is that that item was not on the agenda, but element of that item was discussed under the agenda. First past the poll, you will not ask a political party to nominate 3 people. 1 woman, 1 woman, and 2 men. But with PR system, you have multiple nominations. Our members were very much delighted, happy to support that conversation. And they very well know that that very conversation has no place in first past the poll. But they were comfortable. And now they want to go out there to continue taking us for granted, fooling their people, their political party members, executive, that we not set motto, we set the full muscle, but be fool. Right? Challenge the issue. You were here. I mean, you were elected to challenge issues.
Mr. Tony?
Yes.
Mr. Tony?
All right. Fatoma, please.
Mr. Fatoma?
Okay.
You gotta withdraw that. Not here. Please. Be careful. Your caution. Withdraw that statement. Withdraw about this.
Can I speak? Madam, I'm not arguing. Yes, Honorable. Yes, Honorable.
If I use big fool on the floor, I'll be asked to withdraw it. I ask you, withdraw big fool. Don't tell parliamentarians it's a big fool discussion.
My words.
You don't need that word.
Okay, Honorable, for the sake of democracy, I withdraw. Yes, please.
Can I have decorum?
Can we listen to the honorable member, please?
The chair is speaking, please. Mr. Fatoma,
yes, please.
We've had a wonderful platform so far. We've had a wonderful discussion so far. No name calling, no value judgment, no derogatory word. I'm the chair here. I'm asking you no conditionality, not for democracy, not for anything. You don't need a word like that to make your point. Nobody did. Withdraw that word. Say
I humbly withdraw.
Thank you. Continue. You have 3 more minutes.
I will use 2 minutes. I will give you 1 minute away. I want to appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, for creating this platform. It's not too late. We need this as a citizen, and we want to use this platform to ensure that we build the cohesion that we have been yearning for. We use this platform to identify a fit political system, fit for us that will help our social economy in this country. So with that, this is the second time I've been intimidated in this very room. I want to rest my case. Thank you.
May I make this statement? Let me make this statement. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're given the platform, if I may speak, please, can we have some silence? Can we have some silence? We all crave democracy. We all crave freedom of speech. You can make your point without being insulted. That's what we're fighting against here. We don't want a democracy that is a Mamikos democracy. But Mamikos starts from a certain level. So I'm pleading with folks. It's the beginning of a dialogue. So far it's gone very well. People are making points, facts. We're making notes. Please, if you want this to continue, people want to be assured that there will be decorum when they come next time. Yeah, I said to you at the beginning, no issue of contempt, not when I'm chairing. But of course, I expect decorum. We don't have this kind of language in the UN or in our parliament here. So I just caution Mr. Fatoma and others, don't abuse the privilege. It's not intimidation. It's just a fact of respecting. There are ministers in this room. After all, we contested for positions. As IGR said, do you know how much money it cost us personally to contest? It's a lot of money. From relatives, from friends. People sell property. It's no joke to be here. And if some of us go out of our way, because I'm chairing political affairs, my colleagues are in political affairs, we're supposed to create a platform for you. I want people to feel comfortable next time. Say, if political affair calls us on a sensitive issue, we can come and all of us will be respected. There are a lot of MPs here. So I don't want children copying that you can be in front of leaders, ministers, former leader of government business, former leader of opposition, and you can use any word.
So today we forgive, but please next time the sergeant of arms will be somebody else because I want to put dialogue. That's why we're letting everybody speak freely. Yeah? So it's no intimidation. I have let's wait. I need to finish civil society and I'm going to have response from government. I'm going to have my honorable senior colleagues speak as well, and then I'll come to members of the panel. Yes. Yeah. Those who are online, please have patience. So now I invite Madam Sally Will, Women's Forum. Sally, oh, my deep apologies. I've been corrected, Madam Adams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of Parliament, fellow civil society organizations present here. And first of all, I want to say thank you for this invitation, Mr. Chairman. I'm talking on behalf of the Women's Forum, so I own the National Women's Umbrella. It's over 300 registered women's groups all over the country. So, I want to thank Honorable Vanessa for her presentation. My key points there is on the PR system. Because for us, the forum, we are not happy with this members of parliament because we talk on issues that affect men and girls of this country. We spoke about affirmative actions for our bids. But when we send the bill, 30% bill in this parliament, we don't ask for statistics. The parliamentarians, we are against that bill. Up till now, that bill has not been passed yet. So we as Women's Forum, if, yes, I don't mind. Yes, I don't mind. If we go with what?
Madam, you've earned the right of your mind.
Yes. If the PR system is the one that will favor our women in this country, we will support that bill. The PR system will support it. Because we want to see more women in parliament this time now.
Madam, continue. What that zone is part of the business of parliament.
I know.
This honorable word, if you stimulate my sister, I will come after you.
But we want more women this time to represent us in parliament. Because if you look at the PR system, now they say 2 men, 1 woman. We continue to advocate and lobby so that it can be 1 man, 1 woman, 1 man. So if we go with that, take it on Chairman. We want 1 man, 1 woman, 1 man, not 2 men and 1 woman. So that more women will be represented, if even have constituency to have only 2 men, you have 1 woman there. And then also, when it comes to, we are talking of peace, dialogue, but I blame political parties when it comes to violence in this country, in terms of elections. Because they are the same people that incite these young boys or young women to go out to demonstrate things that are not good for good governance in this country. That has to be changed. If we really want total coalition, peaceful and co-elections, we have to go back to the drawing board. What we are doing now to be replicated all over the state, not only in Free State alone. So, Mr. Chairman, with all the highlights said by Madam Lahai, we Women's Forum Sierra Leone, we support the PR system because we want our women to be in parliament, even more than the men. That's possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I want to thank all our colleagues from the civil society for their detailed presentations. We'll be very grateful if we can have some of those in writing. Some of them have already published some of their thoughts publicly. For those who haven't, we'll be grateful if we can receive them. With that, we finished the set of civil society groups that had agreed to speak to us today. I want to now turn to our senior colleague, Honorable Bundu, a former leader of the government business. You've also done 3 terms in Parliament, if I'm right. You and Honorable Bennett, I have that unique record. You're very brave people to do 3 terms. So your own comments, and then I'll come to the Honorable Minister. You have to leave. Honorable, can you allow me, because I did take him out of a retreat and he has to go wrap up. Mr. Honorable Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice, thank you for giving us that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Tade Ukela, the Chair of the Political Affairs Committee in Parliament. I actually did not come here to make any comments. I was going to sit down and listen, and I was not going to speak if you had told me. But I checked quite a few minutes ago from court, and I realized that one of the political parties put on tacit notice that you are going to challenge the issue of the PR in court, as yet to file papers in the Supreme Court of Australia. They've not yet, so I have the right to make a few comments. And my comments I'll be making, I hope, will not be prejudicial, and I will not be speaking to the matter that is sub judice, because we are yet to go to court on this issue. Because I start with a few questions. Is the proportional representation part of the laws of Australia? The answer is yes. Has proportional representation been so declared? Yes. Was it legally declared? Yes. If you have questions with it, what do? You go by section 121 of the Constitution. Only the Supreme Court has the powers to interpret the provisions of this Constitution, and no one else. But I'm happy. I've listened to the conversations, very interesting ones, and I want to particularly comment on the issue of the independent candidates. I've had many people making submissions that independent candidates do not have the right to contest under the PR system. I beg to differ, because if you look at our Constitution, it has always made reference to political parties and no one else. If you look at section 35, subsection 1 of the Constitution, it says, and I quote, political parties shall sponsor, you don't say independent, say political parties shall sponsor candidates for presidential, parliamentary, local government elections. Simplicity, section 35(1). You go to section 38, again, the amendment is political parties. But notwithstanding, the simple requirement for one to be a member of parliament is provided for under section 75. Section 75, under a PR system of transparency, whatever system is being used, if I come, I'm Australian 1, I'm 21 years of age, I can read and write, then I'm qualified to be elected as a member of parliament. Nobody stops me. Nobody. Under section 33 of this Constitution, it gives power to the National Electoral Commission to make regulations. It says NEC shall have the power to make regulation by statutory instrument for the conduct of parliamentary, presidential, or local government elections. They are here to make those regulations. Having so declared the political system, which is part of the Constitution of Australia, and rightly so and legally so, it is for them to make regulation by statutory instrument which come before the House of Parliament. And in that statutory instrument or regulation, they do not have to apply, because they are mindful of section 75, which says the qualification for you to be elected as a member of parliament simply nothing more, nothing less. If I feel those qualifications and I want to contest whatever political system it is, nobody stops you. You be in violation of the Constitution, which I'm sure the Electoral Commission will not do, and they will bring in their regulations. And on the PR system as well, Mr. Chairman of this commission, you quite recently passed into law the Public Elections Act. In that Public Elections Act, you agree in section 56 of that instrument that the elections, public elections, other than members of parliament, shall be conducted according to the Constitution. And the Constitution prescribes for 2 methods of election: proportional representation of the first party post, as you call it. And in all of these elections, whatsoever before have been argued, it has always been the role of political parties. Political parties will have to prepare a list. The one affidavit is statutory declaration and submit is to make. And you started a affirmative action as well in section 58 of the same Constitution, in which you directed that political party shall nominate candidates 3 candidates nominated under subsection 1, one of them shall be a female. It's a political parties, as that's always been. And if independent come for Mr. Abraham told me to come, I want to be elected as a member of my under the PR system. I am 21 years of age, I can speak English, I'm on the electors list under section 75, which are the requirement. Who stops me from contesting? Nobody. It does not belong to a political party. If you look at this constitution, the only area mentioned is made of an independent candidate in section 75M, which says, having been so elected as a member as an independent candidate. But there's always been political parties. In 2018, they came forward, they contested, and they're here. So if we're using a PR system, I go to them and say, I am Umaru Kuruma. I don't belong to a political party. I want to contest. I fulfill the requirement under section 75. If you don't put me on the list, if you don't make arrangement for me, what happens? It will be in violation of this provision. So to me, the argument to say independent candidate provision don't make is false. So does it make any sense?
So Mr. Minister, you're telling my brother to be ready to coach him.
Oh, to be ready to go to Parliament. So I want to thank the listeners. You've made very good points, interesting ones. We're here to speak about the merits of the PR system, as my colleague, my junior colleague Rashid was trying to do the PR system. We spent weeks here. I can list 200 merits of the professional representation system as he has done the demerit. It's never concentration on that, but that's not the issue here. The issue, as Marcella said, we deal with legal framework. Election is all about legal framework. Have you acted within the confines and provisions of the law? The question is yes. If you feel dissatisfied that is not correct, what do you do? Go by section 120 of the Constitution. Go to the Supreme Court. For an interpretation, because that's where you have the canons of statutory interpretation. You and I will argue here for the rest of the day. When you go before the Supreme Court, what is here? They have the various canons of statutory interpretation. So the proposed interpretation, the intelligence rule, the mystery rule, etc., etc. They will use those instruments to interpret the Constitution and tell you when a PR has been so declared and it has been done so rightly and legally, and it is here to stay. All we have to be happy, like you said in the conversation, I'm happy people are talking about thresholds, they are talking about human representation, they are talking about various issues, which I think we get into the ears of the Electoral Commission. Now we're making those regulations, and those regulations will be laid as statutory instrument. And I hope you have the opportunity as members of Parliament to say you will pick it up and see how those regulations will reflect what people are talking about. But the PR is here to stay and it's ready to go. Thank you very much and thanks for having me. Kindly permit me to go back to my retreat as we're also preparing another legislation. I speak in my capacity as a deputy not as a leader of the SMPP. But the SMPP 100% supporting in the PR system of the electoral system. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, again for making time. We hope to be getting you at another time for thank you so much. At this point, I was looking for the people of the Minister of Political Affairs. Yes, I thought I was just looking for them to just signal them that we hope they're still here. And I invite Honorable Buddha. For those of you, well, I introduced him earlier already. He is and former leader of government.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Kanda Yonkela, for inviting me to this forum. It's been a while since I entered this room. I'm actually robbed by the fact that after the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, just spoke, he raised very pertinent points for the left. I was going to ask some questions. Let me start by saying that I will join those who said they are not going to debate the merits and the demerits of the PR. I want to join them. Let's leave it for the parliamentarians to continue. But since he mentioned the statutory instrument that is coming, I want to entreat members of parliament to pay rapt attention to that instrument on the PR to see whether you can use a subsidiary legislation to amend the Constitution. And those of you who wish to go into the merits and the demerits of the PR, I will entreat you to read and to go to the Hansard on the debate in 2007 when we moved from PR, proportional district proportional representation, to first past the post. The debate was very tense, but we did it, and today we want to go back to it. So I will entreat members of parliament when that subsidiary legislation, the statutory instrument comes in, please endeavor to contact the Hansard department, and it will be enriched by provisions or the arguments there. Madam Masala Samba suggested that in the enactment of such a law or this provision of the PR, is it lawful? Yes, it is in the law, but when you are passing a law, the first thing you want to do is to engage. When you engage, you lobby, and at the end of the day, if you don't have consensus, you will have votes. So I want to encourage people who are going to go into this to take note of that. Then, of course, Ibrahim Tomi mentioned the issue of that this proportional representation pronouncement is irreversible except by the Supreme Court. Well, I'm baffled, and it has just been re-echoed by the Deputy Attorney General. I'm very baffled because if that is the case, then I don't think even the statutory instrument should be laid in this parliament again. But that is another kettle of fish. But I believe the pronouncement has been done. The public is looking at it. That's why most people are here, and we are going to continue to look at it, and we are going to engage as members of the public as we are doing, and we'll talk to our colleague members of parliament, both SLPP, APC, all the members of parliament in this parliament. We are going to talk to them. It's about the nation. This is one legislation that needs consideration for this nation. In 2002, 2007, APC was 27 members, PLP 2 members, and the SLPP was 83. When that piece of legislation came to this parliament, we took away our political colors, we debated it, and the SLPP, the APC that were 27, we won that debate, and it was an open voting by show of hands. We won it. Please, honorable members, when that piece of legislation, the statutory instrument comes here, pay attention and take consideration that you are national representatives. We know we belong to political parties. Even those of you who are independent, I want to proffer this advice with the example I've just cited. For 27 members yes, including the plus the paramount chiefs, So, but they did not support them at that time. So please, honorable members, this is now in your court. Engage your constituents, because no piece of legislation will come here without being gazetted. And when it is gazetted, it's for the members of the public. So members of the public, please, I want to encourage you, as soon as the gazette comes out, please also pay rapt attention, engage your MPs so that this piece of legislation that is creating so much tension can can be enacted peacefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister and his team from Political Affairs. Your turn, you've listened a lot. The Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General did his intervention.
Yeah, the mic now.
As the Minister of Government, I think what I'll do is just echo what the Attorney General has said. That's the government's position, and that's my position as well.
Your colleague, APRN. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so he can say something.
He can say something.
Okay. But it's not going to be it's the government position. In fact, the only thing I can say is we'll have closing statements.
Yes.
Please permit me, Mr. Chair. As a teacher, we like standing when talking. It's no longer about government position. I'm talking about Sierra Leone's position. All right, okay. All right, okay. Thank you. It's about Sierra Leone's position. Perhaps mine will just be a piece of warning. We have to be very, very mindful there. Political systems all over the world are only there to provide the opportunity for people to determine which system works best in your own situation. Which was why those of us that have read some politics, they will tell you there was a moment in the history of mankind when slavery was seen as the best. The argument by exponents was that some people are so people-minded to the extent that if you allow them to take decisions on their own, they not only ruin their own lives, but they can even undermine the growth of society to cross that bridge. So democracy we are talking about here has gone through processes. We keep talking about social cohesion. Social cohesion is an end point of a process. Social cohesion is not something you write, it's something you demonstrate. The surest means to attaining social cohesion in any society is shared growth. Everywhere in the world, there is no omniparity. You have the poor, you have the rich. China, for instance, when we went there, the strategy they are using, in every society, like in the case of Sierra Leone, some regions are more productive than others because of their natural endowment. So for the Chinese, even when it comes to budget allocation, they will look at a particular part of the country. They say those ones, they do not have that natural endowment. So let us give them more. By so you are placing the balance. I just want to draw attention to that. So as we are here today talking about which political system best solves Sierra Leone problem, because it's not about solving political parties' problems. Because unless and until we have this other picture, then we can speak. It's not about political party survival per se. When Sierra Leone survives, political parties will survive. When Sierra Leone survives economically, parliamentarians will not be bothered by your constituents. Your business will now be to do what you are actually there for. That is to say, make good laws, think against those laws that have the potential to undermine. Let me just rest my case by telling you all of this. What we have been doing and what we continue doing as a country is that we do not create space for Sierra Leone to function as a country. And all nations in the world, they have functions. Resource mobilization, making good laws. Of course, the rule of law is prima facie wherever you went. So what I'm equally saying, let us just adjust our attitude towards Sierra Leone a bit positively. So that even as we discuss, let us know that there is a bigger picture there. So that after elections in 2023, we spend at least 4 of the 5 years on constructive nation building, which we have not been doing. So I'm of the view that as we discuss, let us realize that there is a broader picture. The social cohesion to consolidate our democracy, our parliamentarians, all what we are aspiring for as a nation can only be delivered by Sierra Leone, not by a political party. Government, of course, let me land by informing you that government exists solely to serve the purpose of the state. That is why government exists, to serve the purpose of the state. But the emphasis most of the time is on government and is on political parties, which is where we are getting it wrong. For the sake of Sierra Leone, I can receive any bullet. Whether you castigate me, as long as it is in the best interest of Sierra Leone, I'm always prepared to do that. Let us leave this room with that. We will see a better Sierra Leone in the not too distant future. I thank you.
I want to be guided and be consulting with my colleagues. I know the conversation is very exciting and it's already past 6, I think. Past 5. It's 10 to 6. So I want to be guided by the leaders of the political parties. Do we continue or we organize a special session that will feature you and PPRC? Because the danger is if I limit you to 3 minutes, then it's asymmetry, right? It's not balanced. You have a voice too, right? So I want to be guided. Is it okay if we, the committee, schedules an appropriate time for the political parties? Yes. I thank you very much. In which respect? Thank you so much for your understanding. I don't rush you, but I do know I have colleague MPs, some who may want to take the floor, but remember it's 10 to 6. We'll take a few show of hands, and then I will come back to Honorable Minister. You give a closing statement and when the MPs are done. MPs, I want to start from up here. Let's make it short, or we are still in the listening mode. We are still in the listening mode. All right, committee members say they're still in the listening mode, so they will take, okay, I'll take 3 colleagues. Yeah, 1 minute. Political parties, yes.
There was no consensus sought among political parties and who want to say, based on what we have heard here tonight,
I was just going to say that there was no consensus really among political parties as to whether we should speak now or have this. Whereas, even though we would very much appreciate that special meeting, but for some of what has been said here today, I think it would be very important that we hear at least our views on certain aspects that have been said here. So if you could leave it open to at least 1 or 2 representatives of political parties, I think we would have struck a balance.
Honorable Raina.
We know, Dr. Dennis White, we know you are so anxious to say something to the public. We'll give you a better opportunity than today. 1 minute or 2 minutes. It's too small for 17 political parties. Every political party is equal before this parliament. Whether you have a representative here or not, you've been registered by the political party legislation. People that are in charge of regulating political parties. So we've agreed as a committee that we bring you next week, same time, with the PPRC, the ECSL, and the 17 political parties to dialogue. And we'll only invite the civil society to observe. They will not say a single word next week in our engagement with political parties. The reason is we want to hear from you. We want to hear your position. We want to know what we call an informed debate. I'm very sure, I'm pretty sure, by next week, the world will be loaded with all of those instruments, and we're going to debate those instruments. So we bring you before we receive all of the instruments that we're going to debate. It's your point. You help us make Sierra Leone, and you are in the better position to inform us as your representatives. If you miss, then we are going to miss down the well. If you get it correct, then we're going to get it correct. So please, political parties, be assured that this committee that is in charge of bringing you and the people that are in charge will bring you by next week, and have the civil society just be observers for the benefit of our people, because everybody is politically charged down there. So please accept this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We crave your indulgence, Dr. Dennis White and others. We'll organize it as Honorable Zainab has already indicated on behalf of the committee. So I see there's some colleagues who have already indicated interest. So I'll just actually take, wow, there are a lot of them. Well, if we can have a 3-minute rule. So we'll start with Honorable Abukago, then I come to AND in front, and then Lahaimara. The 4 of you there. Do me a favor, 3 minutes each, because we're going to have several bites at this. One of the important things I heard today, remember what the Honorable Deputy Attorney General said, there will be regulations formulated. For me, that was interesting news. So we have to look at those regulations going forward. And indeed, he also said independent candidates can contest. So that's interesting as well. Okay.
Yes, I'll begin with the age. You know, you just reiterated that he said independent candidates can contest. I vehemently said that is not true. Let me just remind you, when he was reading the Constitution, he said in the first past the post, there are no independent candidates. The Constitution does not support independent candidates in the first past the post. But please allow me to read 77M. 77M says, a member of parliament shall vacate his seat in M. If being elected to parliament as an independent candidate, he joins a political party in parliament. So if you are elected as an independent candidate, you join a political party in parliament, you lose your seat. So it shows that the first past the post support independent candidates. And let me come again to the amendment. Let me come to the amendment. In the amendment for the PR system, you see, one thing you should not be cherry-picking what to do here, what to do there. The PR system provides a whole lot of procedure. Let me read subsection 2 of section 38. It says, in the district block representation system, the election shall be contested in each specific district by political parties for the block or number of seats in parliament allocated to the district or under any act of parliament, and the political parties shall be allocated seats in parliament by the electoral commissioner on the basis of their proportional share of the total vote. And 3 says, a member of parliament for the seat won by political parties. So in the PR system as amended in 38A, only talks about political parties. So if you want to bring in independent candidates using the same PR, you have to amend this again to make provision for non-political parties. But that is not the substance of my argument. You know, I was listening to Ibrahim Tomi when he was explaining. He said, please, I can buy it to the time of further comments. He said, somebody had enough for this. Yes. In fact, Ibrahim Tomi, when he was explaining, he said, we cannot use this delimitation, the current delimitation, in the next election. Why? Because you had Lai Mara, who had less than 3,000 votes, and somebody in SNPP who had close to 20,000 votes. And he also said, we cannot use it because the difference between SNPP and APC was just 14,000 votes, and APC had 20. Let me also correct that. They deliberately did not make mention of SNPP MPs, over 3 of them, who had less than 3,000 votes. They did not make mention, and that was a deliberate point to let it look as if it is only APC MP that has less than 3,000 votes. I have 3 SNPP MPs I can name for you that Lai Mara beat in the group. But that is not the subject of argument. That is not the subject of argument. Now, again. Honorable members, I don't have enough time, please. Honorable members, I don't have enough time. Again, on the issue of 14,000, on the issue of 14,000 vote difference and 26 difference. You see, one thing they made you to believe is that the number of total vote is responsible for the number of seats. No, it is the concentration of the vote. I will prove that to you. C4C had a total vote of 87,720. A total vote of 87,720. And they ended up having 8 seats in parliament. Because all of those votes were concentrated in Kono. And now NGC had
174,000, almost double, 174,014 votes. And NGC had four seats in parliament because those votes were scattered all over the country. So it is not the number of votes you have that determine. That was another deception they are using. So make the PR system look better than the proportion. But again, please allow me. I am rounding up. I am rounding up. I am rounding up. I am rounding up. Yes. I have their blessings. And also, for the PR system, the constitution, the constitutional amendment is very clear. When a date has been appointed and constituencies have not been established, I will tell you why. When you have not established constituency, it's as a result of the fact that you either don't have the data or you don't have the population quota. That was why every district was allocated with the same number of seats because they don't have a data. They don't have a population data. How would you want? Are you saying that if we are using the PI system, you give every district the same number of seats? You have a data. Where did you get that data? And let me make this very clear. Even Tommy was saying that because of the fact that 14,000 for 26 districts, we cannot use that constituency delimitation for the next. Even Tommy also said so. You cannot use that delimitation for this next election. Let me make this point again very clear. You don't change a law. Am I protected? Sir? Yes. He was saying because 14 seats, 20,000, we cannot use it because it is not credible. You cannot change a law because of your perception. You change a law legally. So if you want to disband or you want to refuse to use the previous delimitation, you have to do it legally. You cannot render it null and void because they have created new constituencies or they have done new census. There is no law that says so. Let me help you again. If you go to subsection 1 of section 85, it says the life of parliament is 5 years, and you begin to count on the day of your first sitting. We first sat here in parliament in April 2018. So until April reaches 2023, this constituency and this parliament is alive. And nothing can resolve them.
All right, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. There's always a difference when an engineer and a politician talks. We'll just listen to an engineer talk. Let a politician and political actor talk. They made mention, I really don't want to go that far, but for this opportunity, I will. He made mention of Kono with concentrated votes of just 80,000 as against NGC over 100,000. That is why the room for PR system is created, so that that total number of votes will not be wasted. Those people should be represented. Thank you for that. And he also made mention of 77M, that as an independent candidate, if you declare for a political party, you are no longer an independent candidate. Equally 77K, if even you are a member of a political party and you declare for another party, you lose your seat, as long as you are a member of a political party. Now, let us go now to section 75 that talks about qualifications of members of parliament. Because he is saying there is no room for an independent candidate. If you go to 75, it tells you who becomes an honorable member of parliament. It does not tell you need to be a member of a political party. The conditions are: 1, you have to be a citizen. 2, you have to attain the age of 21. 3, you have to be an elector whose name is on the voters list. Once you qualify this with your ability to speak in order for you to be able to participate in the activities of parliament, you are qualified to be a member of parliament. This being the I will end my statement by asking a simple question. What do you stand to lose if this country goes into proportion? As I normally ask, what do we stand to lose if people we are counted in census as we disagree for them not to be counted? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. I am just grateful. So, we haven't seen your colleague here. No, you gave your time to. You gave them very grateful. So I was your leader wants to speak. So I yield to Honorable Hassan. With that, I have to get some interventions from the digital. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Like I suggested to you earlier, this discussion, like you said, is a dialogue process. I think we need much more time to engage. I want to differ from what my friends were saying, that the PR system is here to stay and that's the only way to go. I want to differ because if that was the only way available, then there is no need for us to sit and have a dialogue. It is because we want to look at it. People must make decisions based on informed choice. At this point in time, we have not been properly informed. I think I want to refer to a statement made by the lady from some people who governance, Barbara Edwards. She said it like that. We have not been able to engage the population properly to let them understand what exactly the PR system is all about. And until and unless we do that, we don't need to force it on the throat of people. Let people understand because it's about voting. Voting, electioneering, do not start when you tell people go and appear to them they go. Let them understand what are they entering into. Let us tell them know why are we going into this. But to say this is the case, I think I will agree. I think Labali or somebody was saying that 10 members of parliament were kicked out of parliament because of the flawed system. No, I disagree completely. They were not kicked out of that. People used means that are not either to legitimate to kick them out of parliament because of the use. But I don't want to go into that again. But that statement to say it was because of the flawed system, I disagree. That is not the case. We know exactly that certain issues that were brought up were not supposed to be brought up in the first place, but because they wanted to advantage, based on advantage. And that is exactly what it was. So I don't want to agree with that. But my colleague already made mention of 34, 38A, which they want to rely on, that this issue not go to discussion to parliament because the speaker did maintain that it's already part of the law of the regime. Yes, but 38A was predicated on certain circumstances that don't exist at this time. And that is still the argument that we are putting. 38A was based on the fact that we didn't have clear consistency. Now we have clear consistency. And you cannot tell me now that the data that we have is not valuable for us to have those consistency still in place. And those consistency will not expire until after April. So if we are saying now that they are not legitimate anymore, they will not need to be parliament at this point in time representing consistency. But we represent our people as it is right now. So we don't agree. That is why let us continue to hold a more constructive dialogue on this PR system. Let people understand. Because a lot of people don't even understand what it's about. We have to continue to hold the dialogue, but to say it is here to stay and it is not going anywhere, that is not the way to go. We don't have to push it on the front of people. Let us agree to disagree and see where we end. But if we have to go this way, definitely that is where. And I want to say that the political instruments that are coming, let them see the light of day in parliament.
We're very grateful for all the inputs. Is there anybody in the Zoom connection that wants to say something? We haven't heard from you. Thank you for staying on. We hope this was useful. This is the kind of dialogue we want to have continuously. Anybody there? Any taker? I see none. Any taker?
Yeah, somebody's speaking. Oh no, that's me. Okay, well, this is the beginning. We hope we'll have additional sessions organized. We've not heard from political parties, so we're going to give them an opportunity, and I'm sure there are many other stakeholders who want to engage in this discussion. So with that, we'll turn to Your Excellency, Minister for Political Affairs. Thanks for staying so long. The gender bill, just a comment, Honorable Minister, for 2 minutes. The chair of the gender committee is here. We know the bill is in Parliament, right? Can I? Okay, let her speak. Is the bill here? But not hammer on a little bit of that. Is the bill here? Chair of the committee.
Dr. Kaloko, you want to say something?
No. Oh, yes. You're the chair. We give you the
All right. The gender bill came to Parliament months ago. It was with us, and the first reading went through. After the first reading, that was the end. We did not see the minister. All what I heard was the leader of government business during the debate on the Public Elections Act bill of 2022. He told me that he received recommendations or an addendum to the gender bill. I said publicly in the well, and they had to prove me wrong, all right? I said it's wrong. You cannot receive an addendum singularly without the House knowing that there are addendum to the bill. If you receive alone, it is in your hands. So it means we don't know the whereabouts of the bill. That's all what I can say as chair.
Thank you for that clarification. Honorable Minister, please.
Hello. I think actually we're coming to the close of this. I have sat and listened to this, and it's really interesting. I must thank the chair of the committee for really insisting that as a ministry we are seen to be doing our work. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I must say, if you look at mandate number 3, to maintain a regular contact with the to identify national issues of concern as and when necessary, and encourage public debate on such issues. So this is what has happened here. That's why I think I have refrained from really participating. My job here is to listen, and then, for instance, the government position has been made very clear by the Attorney General, and also I think we should be patient as Parliament. He has said there are issues, for instance, the issue of independence. Instruments are going to be brought to Parliament. I think the committee chair has alluded to that. By next week, I think Parliament will be swamped with instruments, which Parliament then will be in a position to look at. I think let's be patient. This is what we want. Dialogue. Let's agree. Let's disagree to agree. That is the basis of democracy. So I think I must say thank you, Mr. Chair. We're looking forward to such debates as often as possible and with different groups. I don't know whether it will be possible for us to extend such, but I don't know whether it will be possible for the debates to extend such discussions. Some call it free time provinces. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and your team for staying with us. Indeed, as you say, it is part of your mandate to ensure these kinds of dialogues happen. And we will endeavor to see that our committee will organize additional discussions like this. And of course, if there is funding available, we'll be very happy to do it in home and other places. And I believe it's our responsibility to do that. We have to educate. I want to thank the civil society colleagues. I'm really grateful. I called you 11th hour, but I was really thrilled with your interest and willingness to say, well, come and talk. This is the beginning, and my colleagues have already indicated that we need to do some more of this. We'll try to schedule them, of course, starting with our colleagues, the leaders of political parties who are here. When they're here, I'm a junior member because they control the party. So we're very grateful that you sat through this. Let me just conclude by saying that we all have a stake in this. We all have a stake in this. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources as Parliament to do surveys. But in Ghana, for example, I think it's the Center for CDD. We went there. They get funding from Parliament to survey opinions of civil society groups and citizens to inform Parliament. I would really have loved such a survey even before our session, but the best we can do is do this kind of focus group. I want to thank you for your frankness. As the civil society people said, it's not about any individual now, it's all of us. If we're going to do anything, let's do it right. And I warn my colleagues, some of us do, that whatever laws we make now, if we don't do them right, somebody else will come and use them one day and you'll be a victim. So I want to assure you, my colleagues, those who are speaking, please, we're trying to wrap up. We have guests in the room. I want to assure you that my committee colleagues and I were ready over the next several weeks, months, going forward to do a series of this. And we'll talk to the leadership. I want to say to you, the other leaders are not here because they are on official mission. So in the next sessions we have, I expect to see more of our leadership here. Today, some even asked me to defer it so that they can be here. I said, don't worry. We have digital communications linking, and I know some of them were listening in. So we'll continue this, and I want ideas as to how we can, who else should be in this conversation? Because it's a conversation. We don't take decisions here, but we hope the right people hear it. And I'm grateful to the two ministers that are here to present the government side of this. And we'll continue the dialogue next time with the political leaders. And then thank you very much. I hope it was useful. And I thank the technicians, our parliamentary technicians, for setting this up. And I'm sure other colleague leaders will hear about this. And honorable members, thank you, Dr. Badilahai. Thanks for the work. You gave us a good context. Some of us talk, we don't know the history of the numbers. Thank you for giving us that context. And we'll continue to use that information going forward. Good night, and we will reconvene at an appropriate time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.